giving up 0 runs, and Kenley Jansen secured the 9th for his 16th save of the season. Boston heads to Miami for a 3-game series starting tomorrow night, and NHL free agency officially starts at noon. Florida Panthers have re-signed Sam Reinhart to an 8-year deal. Sports Hub headlines, they are brought to you by Fireworks Over the Border in Seabrook, New Hampshire. Visit fireworksusa.com. Must be 21 years or older. Check with local police and fire regarding firework use in your community. I'm Mike Lockhart. I'm Boston's home for sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub.
To us, Boston pride runs deep.
I'm a Bostonian!
This is Boston's home for sports.
Bow, bow, bow!
98.5 The Sports Hub.
It's called rising and grinding.
Start your
Got your
day.
finger on the pulse, Fred.
Begin your
Seldom
day
right and never wrong.
right here. Is that Toucher or is that Hardy?
Kinda looks like a poodle. It's an effing poodle, dumbass.
The Sports Hub.
Fred, hello. 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 Mm-hmm. Hello. Hello. Hello.
He's naked. He has a sword.
Oopity up with a football.
98.5 The Hub!
Bruins are back from the West Coast.
Cocaine and hookers. Yes. Na 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 na.
Is it okay to use this for the radio?
Welcome to the show. You sweet.
Good morning. Welcome in to Toucher and Hardy here on a Monday morning. It is 4th of July week, which of course means it's a fill-in week. Welcome into the show. Ryan Johnston with you this morning, joined by the one and only Michael Holley.
What's up, RJ?
How we doing?
I'm doing great. I don't want you to look at yourself as a fill-in, though.
No?
No, I mean, you can't take that mentality.
No, see, I look at it more
it's
like
an opportunity.
It is. But it's like, somebody getting called up from the minors, like hit the ground running, try and carry things forward, get yourself a new opportunity.
RJ, this is not good for the campaign. Is there still a campaign?
There's still, of
the
course,
campaign is
the
still
campaign
there?
is not died.
Okay. Well, you can't say minors being called up. You gotta be like, listen, this is my opportunity.
You got to bring
prove.
I'm bringing the energy. Are you plugging me into the lineup?
That I'm the guy for the job. The job is still available.
It is. That's what I hear.
Okay. Have you done anything? Have you added any new layers to your campaign? Any new attack ads? Anything? I want attacks. I want attacks, damn it.
I know. You're
Come on.
I just run down the list.
No, yeah, right,
no.
exactly.
But, things are hopefully progressing.
Have they called you?
We're not going to talk about it.
Okay, all right. This is good.
There are certain things that I will tell you. I will tell you what I told Chad Finn when he reached out to me last week, which is I have nothing public to say at this point.
Okay, and you see, don't get me started on that. Don't get me. No, I got to get started. I got to say this. You brought it up. Chad Finn. He said, okay, I'm reading this. This is what I mean by an attack ad, and I like TC. TC's my guy. I like TC. TC has been at Nesson for about 100 years.
Yep.
He does a great job. He is. When I think of Red Sox baseball, I think of TC. When I think of studio hosting, I think of TC. He's great. He's been in the field. He's been in the stands. I remember those hits of him in the stands.
Sure.
So Chad Finn says, "Oh, this space considers TC a good candidate for the job." No, Chad, you're not helping us.
Does he do the bean pot?
He does the bean pot.
Yeah.
Listen, TC is great on the Red Sox. We got TC on the Red Sox. We need RJ on the Bruins. You need me as your campaign manager. I'm going at everybody. No, do not mention that. So he calls you up. You say, I got nothing to say, and he throws a little nod to TC. That's not right. No. Did you read this?
I did.
Do you want to, get a burner account and be like, hey, man, the hell are you talking about? What the hell are you talking about here? RJ's your guy. Come on, let's do it. Storm the gates. RJ in 24-25 and beyond.
So for those who don't know, the last time we were together, which was a few weeks ago,
we had an attack ad.
Yeah, I
Well, not quite.
put together some campaign ads. Kind of officially announced my campaign to be the next play-by-play guy for the Bruins. It got the ball rolling. It got it out there publicly.
Good. We wanna
And
keep it going.
haven't said a whole lot about it publicly recently, but
I sense your hesitation right now. You want to move on? Like, he's looking for an exit here. Well, how do I get a transition off of this? Speaking of contracts, Jeremy Swayman.
Well, we're going to talk about that this morning. We're going to talk about this is one of those days, Michael, where you wake up at whatever time you get up to get in here, 4:15 in the morning.
Yeah, that's about
right.
right.
And there's news since you went to bed. Guys signing all over the place. Hundreds of millions of dollars changing hands in the middle of the night. So we're going to get into all of that. Paul George has a new address.
And a lot of money.
Sam Reinhart does not have a new address. Jake Guentzel apparently is moving south. So we'll get into some of that. We'll talk about what the Bruins are or aren't going to do. We'll talk about the NBA. We'll get into a little Red Sox this morning as well. Now, Michael, you're having a fun time at the Holley household, because you were telling us off air.
Yes.
You are now childless for a little while.
Yeah, this is amazing. This is really amazing. Kids, sleepaway camp, 1 month.
A month.
A month.
Crazy. A month at sleepaway camp.
A month.
Are they excited about this prospect?
2 of them are.
Okay.
2 of them are really excited.
You have 3.
2, 3 kids.
Right.
2 out of 3. So the younger 2, very, very excited about it. The oldest, 15. So 15, just think about the phone. Because at this camp, if you want to contact your parents, you actually have to sit down with something called a pen or a pencil.
They don't have access to
There's
phones?
something called paper, and you actually have to write a letter. You have to address a letter, put a stamp on it, and send it.
So they are electronically cut off?
That's it.
My kids have done it. It's great.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So they'll throw you out of camp. If they find, because I had to check before I left the car. Like, wait a minute. All right, we got all phones. The switch. You can't have anything.
It's like going to a Chappelle concert. You just take your phone, wrap it up in a bag?
No phones, no iPads, no iPods, nothing.
Really?
For a month.
That's gotta kill them.
So that kills him, the oldest. That's what he doesn't miss us. He's gonna miss the phone.
In a few days he'll be fine though. He'll adjust.
A few days?
Yeah.
Maybe a week. I think it'll take him a week. So
I'm trying to figure out how long it would take me to adjust.
And they stay in cabins. It's kind of roughing it, but it's a great experience. And it's good. I just couldn't believe it yesterday. My phone was as quiet as it's been in a year. Like the asking, hey, can I do this? Can I do this? And then the Apple Cash thing. The Apple Cash, have you guys discovered Apple Cash?
No.
It's like American Express for kids. That's the way they look at it. Just like the phone is magical. It just gives away. You get money. Yeah. You just get money. You just ask ask your parents, and then suddenly $15 appears.
So this is like 21st century allowance. This is how it works.
Well,
they have like an account, like an expense account.
Okay, let me just call myself out and call my wife out. We've been a little lax. So I made this big announcement on the way to camp yesterday. Hey, things are going to change. Like when you get back from camp, your phone habits will change. This whole Apple camp, we're shutting this down. We're gonna recalibrate. We're gonna be more disciplined. So don't get used to just asking us for money. But it's easy. It's easy. Like, okay, you just don't want to deal with it. It's 7:00. You're having dinner. Is not okay. Hey, can we go to Dunkin'? Yeah, go. Just go. Here. Can we get pizza? Go. Just go. Leave me alone. Here's some money. But that's changing. This month for them away is a month for me to get myself right.
You're gonna kind of reset.
I'm gonna cook more. I'm gonna do some wholesome things. Make sandwiches for dinner. Soup and sandwiches for dinner. No money. No money to the kids.
So you do this every year? Is this something
Yeah, this
that
is great.
your kids do
But
this
it's,
every year?
it's so good.
So this is like so it's like a month of parole.
We need
Like,
we need a break. But I think it's good. I think you get tired of each other.
Sure.
You just need a little break. Like my kids are at that age. You know what it's like. I mean, the kids are at that age where they have opinions. They have getting some independence. Kind of annoying. And so it's just, after a while, they just kind of wear you out. So you need a break from them. They need a break from you. That's the way I framed it yesterday for the big one, who was just trying to hesitate. Now, this is progress. This is progress. Now, one year, like the first year he went, now the younger ones are like, they're hyped up. Oh, my God, we're going to camp. We're going to be on our own. We can do whatever. He was so freaked out. My daughter, and this is she was 9 at the time. She came up and she's like, "Yeah, you need to come downstairs." Like, what's going on? She said, he's on the floor. My son was on the floor, like curled up. He said, curled up. He's curled up. He doesn't want to go to camp. I said, tell him we're leaving in 25 minutes. I'm not coming downstairs to see a 13-year-old boy on the floor curled up because he doesn't want to go to camp and give up his phone. So the problem is not camp. The problem is the phone.
It's the phone.
Yeah.
The problem is the phone. The phone determines everything. If you can control you know what I'm talking about, right?
It's
You can control the phone. You can get kids to do anything you want. If you take the phone away, they listen.
So you basically are sending your children to rehab for 30
Yes.
days.
Electronic
Yes,
rehab.
that's it.
It's like we're going to cut you off from the thing that means most to you in your life for 30 days.
30 days. They don't even know. By the way, they don't even know what that means.
What, the dial tone?
They don't know what that means. Like a friend of mine told me a story. He had his son call a restaurant and get some takeout, and his son says, "Dad, I think there's something wrong with the phone. There was this weird." No, it wasn't that. You know what it was? Old school, busy signal.
Oh, wow.
They don't know what that is.
Yeah, was it a pizza place or something?
I haven't even heard that. I haven't heard it. Like, when's the last time you heard a busy signal?
Only when I call this one pizza place in Brockton. It's so popular, it's always busy.
But they actually don't have multiple.
They have
No,
two
they
lines.
probably do, but it's like both of all the lines are full. So.
I haven't heard a busy signal in years.
Because I think that's about the only there's a place not too far from me that we order from every once in a while, and I think you're right. It's like if I have to call them, the phone's usually busy.
Yeah.
And then you get mad, right? We're busy. Like, what the hell is going on here?
On to the next place.
Yeah. Like, why isn't somebody answering the phone? Busy? Who has a busy signal now?
Well, what pisses me off is can you guys just online order? Like, their website doesn't have online ordering. It's like the only place around us that you can't order online from. So
wow. So that didn't change. That changed for everybody.
It's like that's why your phone's always busy. If you just let me order online, you could tell me it's going to be 2 hours. I'll wait.
Didn't people have to adjust during COVID? Like during COVID, if you didn't have any if your takeout game wasn't at a level, then you were in trouble.
Right.
Didn't most people kind of adjust on the fly and get an online
even if you don't,
to what they were doing?
I mean, it's like just at least put in a couple more phone lines. You're missing orders.
Yeah,
here.
missing
You'd be
orders.
making more money. But
This must be a hell of a pizza place. If this place in Brockton must be a hell of a place.
Giorgio's, always busy.
Oh, shout out.
Yep.
There it is. Always busy.
I think they're on vacation this week.
Get more phone lines. Giorgio's. The only complaint. What's your feedback for us? Well, more phone lines.
More phone lines.
But the pizza's good.
Yeah.
Kind of pizza.
I don't know.
Is it Greek,
Honestly,
Greek pizza?
I think it kind of leans toward a Greek style. I'd
Okay.
say, yeah. They're most with their beefs, their roast beefs, which are very good. You don't find too many good roast beefs in the South Shore.
Okay. So, pizza and sandwiches.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
We got our beefs, bro.
Yep. Joe Murray approved, I bet, if he would have it. Yeah.
No, Joe Murray has been there.
is there?
I bet he
Joe-
has, yeah.
Joe
How many
Murray
places
has
does
been
Joe Murray not approve of?
Unbelievable.
I don't know if I've ever heard him say a place is bad.
Right? That's what I'm saying. It's like not every place can be the best.
Now, the scouting report is detailed.
Yeah.
It's not, oh, yeah, you got to get those chicken wings. Oh, they give you a little sauce on the side. Those fries, you got the curly fries.
If every place is the best, none of them are the best. Right? All right.
They treat him well, so that's all.
Well, everybody treats Joe because everybody knows Joe.
Everybody knows Joe.
You know, that's the trick. If you have a friend, everybody.
But I don't know. But I don't. Has Joe extended to Brockton though? I know Joe has the city on lock. Does he? What's the reach?
Yeah, no, because like I've heard people, talking about places like out in Worcester, and Joe's like, oh yeah, I've been there 100 times. Like the man must eat like 8 meals a day for free.
Yeah,
because he's been to that many places. But I guarantee you, if you just called up as
he knows George.
You just called up his show and said, "Hey Joe, I'm going to be in Brockton tonight. Can you give me He'll have like 12 places to give you.
You're like, Joe, no, the beef is good, but they got a prosciutto thing going on there. Yeah. It's unbelievable. Like a little ask for the special sauce.
Ask for the Murray.
Yeah.
All right. We've got lots to get to this morning. We'll get into, as I said, little Bruins, little NBA, little Red Sox today. We'll talk about what happened last night, which is more like what happened this morning. Contracts being agreed to at like 3 o'clock in the morning. Woj has been up all night, mainlining coffee. So we'll talk about that and tell you where Paul George is going to be playing. And talk about, the Celtics plan of, just bringing back the whole band is great, but teams around you are going to get better. Maybe one of them got better a few hours ago. So we'll get to that coming up. Ryan Johnston, Michael Holley. We got Mike Lockhart in on headlines this morning as we fill in for Toucher and Hardy here on a Monday, 98.5 The Sports Hub. 98.5, the Sports Hub. Ryan Johnston, Michael Holley in for Toucher and Hardy today. We got Mike Lockhart in with us on headlines. Ryan Beaton, Kyle Fabrizio producing for us this morning.
They're up. And they're
everybody's
ready.
off this week.
They're up. They're good. Ready to go.
Always.
What are we going to do from a production standpoint today? What are we going to do to get in trouble? You want to get in trouble today? Lockhart, you want to get in trouble today?
I think we get in trouble on Friday, so I'm going to steer clear of that. I don't know.
You already? Oh, trouble is already has already found you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm a little late to this.
So there's trouble on the way
Why
out
not?
the door for everybody's taking a week off. It's like, hey, we can get in
Let's
trouble
make it
and
worse.
just duck out for the next week.
Let's make it worse. Blame somebody else.
Michael, it is free agency time. This is, and I end up filling in this week a lot because this is right around the 4th. It's a good time to take some time off. Can use basically like 3 days of vacation and get like a week and a half, close to 2 weeks off if you time it out properly. So this is always like one of those weeks. Like, oh, you want to work the week of July 1st? Like, yeah, sure. And I always go, the hell are we going to talk about? And then you wake up the morning of July 1st and hundreds of millions of dollars, sometimes billions of dollars have been spent before you even wake up. And last night, this morning is one of those days. NBA free agency got going, at 6 o'clock last night was the opening of the tampering window. I think they were started to announce deals at 4 o'clock?
Exactly. Deals coming.
But the big dog, 3:30 this morning is the official time on the Wojbomb tweet. Free agent forward Paul George agrees to a 4-year, $212 million max contract with the Philadelphia 76ers. George committed in a meeting with Sixers officials and returns east to join Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey in pursuit of an NBA title. Michael. Paul George is, according to, I believe, the most up-to-date numbers, now the second highest paid player in the NBA on a per-year basis at this very moment.
That's not going to last long.
No, I'm not saying. But
yeah,
at $53 million a year for Paul George.
No, listen, Paul George is a really good player. This is a good signing for Philadelphia. So if you look at their top three, I got no complaints with their top three. You look at that, you got Joel Embiid, you got Paul George, you got Tyrese Maxey. Pretty good top three. Now, question is, what do they do with the rest of the roster? They got Kelly Oubre, who's like a good role player. But I think the strength, if we all compare this to what the Celtics are doing, the strength of what we just saw from the Celtics is that you've got some star power at the top, but you got pretty good depth as well. The Sixers don't. So the Celtics, you look at that top 6, top 7, and you go, okay, when healthy, because obviously Porzingis is going to be out. I'm saying Christmas with Porzingis. That's what I think. Christmas with Porzingis, that's when you see him. All right?
I'm saying bubble wrap him like Gronk back in the day.
It doesn't matter.
Can you be ready for like mid-April?
It doesn't matter if you bubble wrap him. There will be some time. You just gotta factor that in. He will miss time. He will miss time the rest of his career. You think the guy is Porzingis, you think he's like 32, 33 years old. He's still in his 20s. It doesn't seem like it. It's just
his body's 58.
He's just a fragile dude, but an effective dude. But the Celtics top 7, top 8, very effective. The Sixers cannot go that deep, and most teams can't. Flip side, New York. They add Mikal Bridges, give up 5 first-round picks for him. They go deep, but their star power is not as deep as Boston's, or for that matter, Philly's. Like Philly's top 3 is you can compare that to any top 3 in the league and say, yeah. Like, they don't have to apologize to anybody. They don't have to back down. New York is not like that. New York has depth, but star power. Brunson, I love Brunson. I like Randall. I like Bridges. I like, Anunoby. I like those guys. Don't love them. Mm-hmm. The Sixers, if you believe in big threes, if you think big threes are still effective in the modern NBA, you look at Philadelphia and say that's a real threat. I don't think that's it because of some of the special circumstances going on with Philly. I think Maxi is good, but defensively a little small. Paul George is a really good regular season player. The Clippers got to one Western Conference Finals.
Well, that's kind of my
with
question.
Paul George.
Is when you look back at Paul George's career, as you said, he's a really good player, but where's the success come? And granted, listen, a lot of it depends on what's around you, right? I mean, stuck in Indiana for all those years, were they really going to build a winning team in that market?
And they had a winning team. They couldn't get by LeBron and Miami and LeBron and it was essentially LeBron and Miami.
Now, I mean, obviously he joins a good Sixers team here. You've got some really good players on that team, but
speaking of fragile, Joel Embiid.
Yeah, it's like it feels like okay, so when Embiid's beat up at the end of the year, is Paul George going to be the guy who puts you over the top against the Celtics, for instance, who were clearly the far and away best team in the league and best team in the East, certainly. So if you're Philadelphia or if you're New York, that's where all of your focus has to be this offseason is how do we catch up to the Celtics?
Right.
Does Paul George get you there? And if not, is he worth $53 million a year?
Paul George gets you closer. And that guy shouldn't be available to you. This is really okay. So if you're Philadelphia, do everything you're supposed to do. Yeah, Paul George, he's added to Joel Embiid. Think about the upgrade you had. You've gone from Tobias Harris to Paul George, and some of those guys who have been there with Embiid, some of those characters. He's had a bunch of them. So he's had Jimmy Butler as a number two, and some people would say Butler was their one. Personality-wise, he was their one, but in terms of pecking order, he was their two. Couldn't get to the conference finals. They had Jimmy Butler. They had James Harden as that number two. Couldn't get to the conference finals with James Harden. And so now you've got Paul George. Would you rather have Paul George than Jimmy Butler? Would you rather have Paul George than James Harden? So it gets you a little bit closer. And his regular season numbers are good. So for Philadelphia, this is what you should do. But if you're the Clippers, what? The reason Paul George is available.
Hey, we're keeping James Harden around.
The reason, you know why he's available? They got the richest man in the world, one of the richest men in the world, and Steve Ballmer, would not go to a fourth year. So that number you cited, that 4-year, $212 million, $212 million contract, the Clippers would not go there. The Clippers stopped at 3. So they got a new arena. They've got Steve Ballmer money
with the most toilets of any building in the world, right?
Lots
but
of
that's
toilets.
not even the funniest part. Here's the funniest part. The funniest part is they signed Kawhi Leonard during the season, and then he said, "Okay, I'm going." You said this is vacation week?
Yeah.
Every week is vacation week for Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard is saying, "Oh no, I don't need the 4th of July. I don't need that as an excuse. It's December. I think I'll just chill here for a little." Kawhi Leonard has not played 70 games in 7 years. Let me say 7 years.
Wow.
The season's 82.
Even by NBA rest standards, that's pretty high.
He's
that's
not
high.
played 70 games in 7 years. So they signed Kawhi Leonard to a contract during the season, and here's a shocker for you. Sorry for the spoiler. He wasn't available in the postseason.
And by the way,
again,
you know what? I happened to see a clip last night of Brian Windhorst on ESPN talking about when they signed Kawhi Leonard to that deal. Nobody told Paul George. It's like he found out about it the way everybody else did.
And then he was probably happy about it. He was like, okay, well,
yeah.
If they sign the guy who never plays, yeah, of course
they're going to sign me.
Of course they're going to sign me because I actually show up. I actually show up to work.
Yeah, he played 2 games against Dallas in the first round.
And he was and that was it. That was it. So the Clippers, they have James Harden and Russell Westbrook, but they don't have and Kawhi Leonard, but they don't have Paul George. So I think the East has gotten more interesting for the Celtics, but not enough where you say, all right, this team is gonna take them out. I think Philadelphia will be a pretty good challenge. So I look at it in terms of series. Philadelphia, Boston, I think that's a 6-game series. Last year I would have said that's a 5-game series. Even if you say it's a 7-game series,
so they paid $53 million for one extra game.
Hey, listen.
I mean, hey, if it's a home game in Philadelphia, that's millions of dollars in gate. I'm not sure it pays the contract, but
last year they lost. They lost to the Knicks.
Sure. They have to compete with the Knicks and try and beat them first before they want to beat Boston.
I think the Knicks. I still would say the Knicks are above Philadelphia. Philadelphia does not have a team that you look at and say, all right, that's a championship level team. The 3 is fine, but we saw that in Phoenix. Phoenix also has a top 3, and you say, oh, that's great. And they got into the playoffs, and that top 3 fizzled.
They were playing kind of heartless toward the end of the season too. Philadelphia, the
Phoenix,
Suns. Yeah.
So those teams, I think it's a very early 2000s, late 90s model. Hey, you get you a big 3, or even 2008. You get you a big 3 and you're all set. Not anymore. It's the league doesn't work that way. So you got, in Phoenix, you got Durant, you got Booker, and you got Bradley Beal. And generally in these big 3s, this is another point. I should have made this earlier. In a big 3, somebody is not going to be the same. Somebody is going to be a little pissed off.
Right, because they're not getting the touches. They're not getting their shots.
You just don't have it. It's not sustainable where you have a big 3 and everybody has the same numbers they had before. So who's that third guy who takes 5 fewer shots per game?
Congratulations, Paul George. You're the third guy.
I don't think it's going to be Paul George.
You don't think so?
I mean, it's probably, just in terms of seniority, it's probably going to have to be Maxi.
It can't, but to me,
and I like Maxi.
That's the guy I would want maybe better, more than the other 2. If you gave me the choice of those 3 players, which one do you want on your roster the most? I think he's got the most upside of that group.
Well, the youngest guy of the 3, he plays with a lot of energy. The only thing about him is you can take advantage of him. And just think postseason, what you just saw with the Celtics, and everybody gets excited in the regular season. In the postseason, it's okay. Matchup. Which guy can you attack? Which guy can you take advantage of defensively? That's Maxi's that guy. But in the regular season, I love the way he attacks. I love his ability to go off he can carry you offensively for an entire game, but he can really get hot in those quarters. He has those quarters. He can put you like a 17, 19-point quarter where you have no answers for him. But I think with Embiid, who demands the ball, and Paul George, who demands the ball, either Maxi is going to sacrifice or you're going to have yourself a nice little dysfunctional Philadelphia team.
Let's grab Pedro before we get to our headlines. What's up, Pedro?
How you doing? Just wanted to comment on the Paul George trade. I think Paul George is a good addition, but I really think he's overrated. He's kind of old. He's been in the league about 14 seasons. I just haven't seen the same Paul George in the last few years, and I feel when he comes up to the East is more a defense-prone conference, and he's really going to figure out whether he's going to be able to take on the Celtics, and I just don't see Paul George contributing that much for the Sixers. Yes, he can create probably some more shots for them, but somebody like Embiid with the ego that he has, the offense is going to run through him and Maxi first, and I want to see if Paul George can handle that. Just want to take your comments on that, guys.
Appreciate it, Pedro.
I don't think he's overrated. I do not think. I think he's a really good player, and he's the same Paul George. Now, if you look at it and say, I don't think Paul George is a first-team All-NBA guy, okay, fine. Or I don't think he's a top 10 player in the league. If you feel that way, fine. But he's the same. This is what the Paul George you see now is the Paul George you saw in Indiana. This is a Paul George you saw in Oklahoma City. He's the same. He's a really good player The question is, do you fear him? And I'd say no.
See, that's the thing. It's like,
I don't fear
and I
Paul
know-
George, and
listen,
he hasn't done it, and he hasn't done it at a high level in the postseason.
I know, the NBA TV contract and what it's done to these salaries and all that, but that's what I look at is go, you're paying $53 million a year for a guy that opponents he's not going to be your best player. He's not going to be your guy in the fourth quarter of a playoff game. Like it's the salaries have gotten so far out of whack in this league that I woke up and I saw the 4 for $212. I'm like, what are they doing? How are you spending that much on this guy? And I'm with you. I think he's a really good player. Like $50+ million ought to be one of the great players of all time.
And he's 34 years old.
Like the only person who's supposed to make more in the league this year than Paul George is Steph Curry.
No, I'm telling you, we got it all wrong. I don't know what your basketball game is like. I was thinking about driving over this morning. I was so terrible. I was so terrible just playing ball. I love playing ball, but just bad at it. This is the problem, that we have no game. Because this is the time to be a basketball player. It's not just Paul George. You're right. It's not just Paul George. Did you see Patrick Williams? Who? Yeah, right. Patrick Williams re-signed with the Bulls. Look at the numbers there. I think it's like 5 years, $90 million.
Wow.
He averaged his career. He's a 9-point scorer for the Chicago Bulls. He's hurt all the time. He just got $90 million. Emmanuel Quickly, who I like.
Sure.
He did well. The Knicks traded him to Toronto. He became he's always been like the off the bench kind of quick scoring guy. The Raptors just signed him to like a massive over $100 million contract.
Wow.
So I don't think these numbers are even updated. So it's probably even bigger than this. There are at least 150 players in the NBA that are making 8 figures this year. You can be the 150th best player in your profession, and you could make $10 million a year.
I'll give you another one. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, KCP. Yeah. So he just signed with Orlando, and he's getting $22 million a year, something like that. So he's Denver wanted him back as a role player because that's what he is. He's a good role player, and the Nuggets will miss him. But he's making $22 million.
Three for 66. That's unbelievable.
So, it's just we just got to change the way we look at players. It used to be, hey, $20 million player.
That's top of the league.
Yeah, that's the top player.
That's KG money right
$22 million player is just like, it's like nice player. Good. He's good. He can play in the league. He can be a part of your top 8. So, yeah.
All right. Let's get to headlines here.
RJ's like, damn, why couldn't I be taller?
Yeah. There's more than my height holding me back.
Why can't I have more skill?
All right. Mike Lockhart gives the Sports Hub headlines. More to come on this Monday morning. Ryan Johnston, Michael Holley in for the guys on Toucher and Hardy.
Sports Hub headlines.
Yeah, it's good to be an NBA player these days. Lots of money being thrown out. Celtics have signed Luke Cornett to a 1-year deal. Chris Paul, he lands with the Spurs for 1 year, $11 million. He's 39 years old. Paul George signed for 4 years, $212 million. And Kevin Love signed for 2 years with the Miami Heat. Red Sox stopped a 2-game skid yesterday. They won 4-1 over San Diego. Devers and Duran both had home runs for Boston. Josh Winkowski got the start. He went 5 innings, giving up 0 runs. Boston heads to Miami for a 3-game set starting tomorrow night. And NHL free agency officially kicks off at noon today. Florida Panthers have re-signed Sam Reinhart to an 8-year deal. Sports Hub headlines, they're brought to you by Safety Insurance, providing comprehensive coverage for your auto, home, and business. Ask your independent agent about safety. I'm Mike Lockhart. I'm Boston's home for sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub.
reviews are in.
I got to say, I don't want to talk about you. Give me about 5 minutes of my time.
What he said. Now more of on the Sports Hub.
It's the 2-1. Devers sending it towards the wall. It is high, it is up, and it is gone!
All yesterday on Nesson. The Red Sox salvaged the third and final game of their series against the Padres, 4-1 victory. That after getting outscored 20-3 in the first 2 games of that series. 9-2 and 11-1. But they got a good performance yesterday, end up getting the win. And Alex Cora, a lot of discussion mid-season about what his future is. There was a lot of discussion back before the season about what his future was going to be with the organization. Talked yesterday about where they're at as the calendar turns to July.
We're a lot better than what people thought. We'll take that, but at the same time, we need to keep improving. Today we didn't turn a routine double play. There were 2 throws late in the game that were kind of like off. So keep developing these guys to be better. The trading deadline is the trading deadline. The standings are the standings. And, yeah, we're going to talk about that, of course, because that's what people want to hear. I think we're doing a good job staying in the moment, not getting too high when we're playing well and not too low when we struggle. The one thing I do believe is that because of the youth and athleticism, we're not going to go through stretches that it might happen because that's the nature of the game, but losing 5-7 games in a row because on a nightly basis, somebody that is a freak athletic-wise can take over a game and help us win a game.
So we know Alex Cora. I mean, he's made a number of comments along the way here about
has he
what they're going to do with the trade deadline.
Has he?
He seems rather focused on it.
We're a lot better than what people thought.
Yeah, you are. In fact, I sent this to the group chat overnight. Pete Abraham yesterday in the Globe Sunday column writes this. Craig Breslow's dilemma. I'm not sure it is one.
I was going to say, what's the dilemma?
You're going to listen to what your boss wants you to do.
That's right.
But it says Red Sox ownership decided sometime over the winter that 2024 wasn't their year and reduced spending. Alex Cora and the players didn't get the memo, and the Sox are contending for a playoff spot. They need a right-handed hitter, a starter, and relief help. They have enough prospects to make some deals and not risk the future. Breslow has said he will be a buyer or seller, not both. He acknowledged that conversation has changed in the last 2 weeks. Whether it changes again in 2 weeks is the question. Cora, of course, would like to see improvements. And Cora said, quote,
here it is. Ryan, this is it. This is
the money quote.
Pay attention. If you're not awake yet, time to wake up. Here it is. Here it is. This is the essence of it all. Right
Alex
here.
Cora, quote, I can walk you through the trading deadline the way I see it. There's 3 ways that you can go. You buy, you sell, you stay put. When you stay put, well, there's going to be teams that they added, and they're going to be better than you. As a former player, Abraham writes, Breslow understands he'll anger the clubhouse if he doesn't improve the roster, but as a data-driven executive, he'll go where the projections take him.
Okay, Pete, you already answered the question. You've answered the question. We got the issue, and we already know what it is. We got the issue. We got how this thing is going to be resolved. We already know how it ends. So over here, this is the tension. Okay, over here we have Alex Cora with that quote. And what is he saying? Yes, we need to make a deal because if we stay the same, our competition is going to be better.
Different scenario, obviously, but we were just talking about in the NBA, in the Eastern Conference, the Celtics are bringing the entire band back.
Right.
And now other teams around them are getting better. Now, to what degree they're getting better, you can argue, but that's essentially what Alex Cora is saying, except the Red Sox are the chasers,
right?
Not the chasee.
Right. The Celtics are being chased, and they can afford to bring everybody, literally and figuratively, can afford to bring everybody back because they're in that position. We just watched them win a championship and have a great parade. The Red Sox, it's been 6 years since their last parade. And it feels like it's going to be another 60 years before we see one. Because Alex Cora wants to be the Red Sox that we're all used to. Those of us who have watched the Red Sox win and watched the Red Sox compete, even when they weren't winning, they were trying to win. And they were trying to make trades. And on the flip side, Craig Breslow, change the names. It doesn't matter. Whether it's Craig Breslow, whether it's Chaim Bloom, whether it's the next person who's going to replace Craig Breslow, it doesn't matter because it's really John Henry. John Henry is like that guy who died and came back and was like, you know what? Death wasn't so bad. Hey, I've seen the other side because he died, in quotes, when they finished in last place and then they won. I think he compared the bottom line. He was like, okay, when we finished in last place, I still made money.
But
he won the championship. I made money, but I had to spend more money. Well, why am I spending so much money? I can make money regardless. Whether we win the championship or we're middle of the pack or in last place, I'm still going to make money, so I'm not going to invest like I used to.
So I guess my question becomes, when it comes to Alex Cora, he had to leave. He was gone for, the COVID-shortened year, and then you brought him back. Why did you bring him back if you don't really care enough to put a better product on the field? When the year he came back, they made the playoffs.
Right.
And since then, they have been sub 500, and now, surprisingly, they are, in contention for a wild card spot. But nobody expected them to be doing that when the calendar turned to July at the start of the season. So, you certainly can get cheaper managers than Alex Cora. Why do they pay him to shepherd along a team that they don't really care if they finish above 500 or not?
You can get cheaper managers than Alex Cora going forward. But why bring him back? Because at the time, he was a distressed asset. Is the market, is it a robust market for somebody coming off a gambling suspension for a year? So a year out of baseball, okay, here's Alex Cora. It's not like you got 4 teams lined up because they're thinking about the press conference. They're thinking about how we still have. I know he served his time, but we gotta sell this to our fan base. Now I think it'd be an easier sell and a more expensive commitment. Alex Cora next year than Alex Cora in the situation that you pointed out. Yeah, it's COVID, and he's coming off a gambling suspension.
Well, he would listen,
and you already had him so. You had it's like the best case scenario for you. He's a winning manager. You won a World Series with him. Now you have to fire him because of this gambling thing. And so the price goes down. You can bring him back at a lower price. He's very grateful that you brought him back. The market knows that. Yeah, they know him better than most. He played for you.
Well, no, when
when
they had to get rid of him, there was no question in most people's minds that he would be back at some point. It was like that.
I don't know.
I felt that way at that point.
I did too.
They're basically being forced to fire him, but they didn't want to let him go because it wasn't on their watch that this stuff was happening. Right? It wasn't like, oh well, he's staying the Red Sox organization. No, he's staying the Astros organization. Who cares about that?
Right. But to answer your question, okay, why did they bring him back at the time? Okay, it made sense. It made sense at the time to bring him back. This was the perfect time for them. They won't hire the next Alex Cora. They won't do that. They won't bring in a guy with World Series experience who is in demand. That is not their next manager.
Their next manager is going to be Jason Varitek. I guarantee it. He's already in there. He's a Red Sox Hall of Famer. Boom, you put him right in there.
Put him in there, and it's not going to be like some huge contract.
Right.
Lockhart's right. That's the kind of thing. So it's who Alex Cora used to be. But who Alex Cora is now, a guy with World Series experience. I saw, who was it? Was it... oh, goodness. Which insider? Oh, it was Heyman.
Mm-hmm.
Saying he's a top 3 manager in baseball, top 5 manager in baseball. He's going to be in demand. The Yankees might be
That's
interested.
That's the
Dodgers,
rumor out there now, is that he's potentially walks to the Yankees after the season.
So think of it. Yankees and Dodgers are interested. They could be interested because they actually are competing to win at all levels. They go and they make trades and they spend in free agency, and they'll spend whatever it takes, whoever is in that managerial seat.
Let's get greedy, you know?
The Red Sox will not. The Red Sox, this is who we are now. This is a small market. This is the way John Henry looks at it. They're a small market franchise. And when Cora says we're better than some people think, what people are you talking about, Alex? Are you talking about ownership?
No, I'm sure not.
Are you talking about the front office? Yes, they're better. Let me take it a step further. Not only are they better than people think, Alex, you're better than they want you to be. Because now you're making them accountable. When you go into
okay. I tell you what, because we're up against it. So
right.
When we come back, I want to continue this and just ask you, what do they have to lose by investing even a little bit into this team at the trade deadline? Like, what does it really cost them? And
maybe
why wouldn't
Alex
they do
Cora.
it? Well, we'll get to that. Mike Lockhart will give us headlines when we come back as well. 617-779-0985 is the number. Ryan Johnston, Michael Holley in for Toucher and Hardy.
NBA free agency kicked off last evening, and the Celtics signed Luke Kornet to a one-year deal. Kornet averaged 15.6 minutes in 63 games for the Celtics last year. Chris Paul signed a one-year deal with the Spurs. Kevin Love signed 2 years with the Heat. And Paul George signed a 4-year, $212 million contract with the Philadelphia 76ers. Red Sox stopped a 2-game skid. They won 4-1 over the Padres yesterday. Devers and Durant both went deep for Boston. Josh Winkowski got the start. He went 5 innings, giving up 0 runs, and Kenley Jansen secured the 9th for his 16th save. Boston heads to Miami for a three-game set tomorrow evening. NHL free agency officially kicks off at noon. Florida Panthers have already re-signed Sam Reinhart to an 8-year deal. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by the 99 Restaurants. Summer seasonal flavors, they're here. You love them at the 99 Restaurants. Try the new fresh strawberry chicken salad or lobster top baked stuffed haddock. You gotta love the nines. I'm Mike Lockhart. I'm Boston's home for sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Listen to it, laugh at it, get mad at it, agree with it, argue about it. It is Boston Sports. Boston Sports. And it is all we do. 98.5 The Sports Hub. In the office, in your car, in your footy pajamas, this is how Boston sports fans start their day.
I bet you're just jealous.
Toucher and Hardy on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Beyond this, I just think I'm so sports focused. Free agency.
This is a sports related thing.
Okay.
Although it is Canada Day, so happy Canada Day for our neighbors to the north.
So what happens on Canada Day?
NHL free agency starts on Canada Day, which is like, it's like Canadian Christmas, really. But it's Bobby Bonilla Day.
Oh, this is the day.
July 1st is the day every year that Bobby Bonilla gets a check for nearly $1.2 million from the New York Mets.
Wow.
And many people don't realize this. He also gets $500,000 from the Orioles today, too.
Wow.
So this is a big day for Bobby Bonilla's accountant.
Why are the Orioles involved?
Because he had multiple buyouts.
So
for those who don't, most people know the story.
This is inspirational.
So
Go ahead.
Bobby Bonilla, this will give you. We were talking about where the money has gone in the NBA. Bobby Bonilla signed a contract with the New York Mets back in 1991, which was the highest paying contract in team sports history at the time. You know how much that contract was worth? 5 years, $29 million.
Wow.
That was the highest paying contract in team sports at the time.
In 1991.
In 1991. 5 for 29. So Bonilla ended up moving on, went to the Marlins, won a World Series, came back to the Mets in 1999. In 2000, he had $5.9 million that he was owed by the Mets. They didn't want him anymore. They negotiated a buyout to pay him $1.19 million for the next 25 years. Almost $30 million to go away. When they could have just paid him $5.9 million to go away, they negotiated, no, we're going to pay you $30 million to go away. And so he's this is year 14, I believe.
Brilliant.
Of the buyout, where he gets $1.2 million every July 1st. Now, the reason that they did this is because the ownership of the time, Wilpon, was invested heavily with Bernie Madoff.
Okay.
And so basically when they negotiated the buyout, they negotiated 8% interest on all of the future payments because Madoff investments were bringing in way better than 8% interest. So they said, we're basically going to be able to pay Bobby Bonilla off with the interest that we're making on all of these investments. Well, whoops, the investments, weren't actually invested. So, and now there's a new owner who, by the way, has floated the idea of actually doing a celebration every July 1st, bringing Bobby Bonilla in and presenting him with a giant check at Citi Field, which would be this may happen at some point.
That's great marketing by the Mets.
Because it's now a thing. Everybody knows it's Bobby Bonilla Day now.
It's bobbleheads, T-shirts.
Right?
Do it all.
Do it. Make money off of it because your organization pays them every year.
Yeah.
Why not get in on it? What a brilliant contract.
So,
right?
I mean, Bobby Bonilla hasn't played baseball in more than 20 years.
2001.
And he is making $1.7 million today. And will be next year and the year at till like 2035.
Such a great contract.
His management, I mean, I don't know how much he has had to pay them over the years. They've been worth every penny. Because this is the greatest retirement plan I've ever seen.
Here it is, Bobby. I mean, Bobby Bonilla, too, who was like...
Because if they would have just taken the $6 million to go away, like, he would have spent that by now. Like, he'd be out, he'd probably be running a car dealership somewhere. It's like, no, you got to guarantee almost $2 million for the rest of your life, basically.
This is the way to do it.
Yep.
This is the way to be to be known forever. Because otherwise, I mean, who's talking about Bobby Bonilla in 2024?
Comes up, he has his own day every year.
He was a nice player. He was fine. But now
he was the richest team sport athlete in the world at one point.
5 years, $29 million. That did it, huh?
That was it. All right. We were talking about the Red Sox before we got to the break and Bobby Bonilla.
The Red Sox, who will never again have the richest athlete in team sports history. That's
they might
not
give
happening.
him a Bonilla contract,
That's
5
right.
years,
right.
$29 million.
So we were talking about Alex Cora and some of his statements, and he talked about it again yesterday. How as they get to July 1st, it's like we're better than a lot of people thought. You think there might have been, he might have been talking about the front office ownership when he made that comment. That would not be unlike Alex to drop something like that. He has been pretty clear of his thoughts on what they should do at the trade deadline later on this month. That said, I ask you, Michael, realistically, what would it cost this ownership to do what Alex Cora wants them to do and say, you know what? We got a chance to make the playoffs here for the first time in a few years. Why not? What does it hurt if, assuming they're not going to go out and give away everything that they've got in the farm, but if you need to go out and acquire a reliever to help your bullpen for the second half of the season, like how much is that really costing
Not much.
you?
Not much. But it's not something that they value. They don't care. And so it is so how obvious is it that they don't care?
But you say they don't care.
They don't.
But okay, but if you care about let's say they care about the bottom line, right?
Right.
So everybody says, okay, they're businessmen, they care about the bottom line. Ultimately, I'm not talking about bringing in a guy who's making $30 million a year and signing him to a long-term deal. I'm talking about bring in a mercenary arm for the stretch run and potentially the playoffs. The amount of goodwill goodwill in the clubhouse and amongst the fan base, the amount of goodwill that it would bring about just to make a simple move like that and say, you know what? We want this team to be rewarded because they are playing better than we thought they were. They're in contention. Let's give them the opportunity to prove that they can be a postseason team. The amount of goodwill that would garner from the ownership or for the ownership would make it worth it, even if it cost you a few $1 million off the bottom line.
I'm 100% with you. But they don't care. That's why it's not going to cost anything. It's not the cost at this point. It's like, oh, we can't afford it. It's not a priority for them. How many times have they telegraphed that to all of us that it is not something that they're going to change? So we had that quote from Alex Cora who says, "Hey, you either get better at the deadline or you don't. If you don't make deadline moves, somebody's going to get better around you." So Alex Cora said that. Rafael Devers, in Espanol and in English, said before the season, "Hey, we got to do something." Mm-hmm. It was he was so impassioned, Devers, I'm talking about, before the season, that he had to come back and say it a few times because the translator was softening it. The Red Sox translator wasn't really telling you what he was saying. So he had to come back and say it again, like, no, this is what I'm saying. It doesn't change. So we've got the fans, some fans, who have said, I don't like what the Red Sox are doing. We have the manager who said, I don't like what we're doing here. The star player has said, I don't like what we're doing. And what has it resulted in? Nothing. The ownership will not be shamed into or pushed into making a move that they don't care about making. John Henry does not give a damn. And I really do believe it goes back to those back-to-back last-place finishes in 14 and 15. So 14 and 15, I just love to see what the bottom line was. Because they were good in 16 and 17, didn't win it. 18, Cora's first year, they win it. And he's like, well, wait a minute. We win it. Then they move on from Dave Dombrowski, who does exactly what he said he was going to do. Dave Dombrowski doing Dave Dombrowski things. This is what he does. He loves stars. He'll go out. He'll acquire stars. He'll trade kids.
Mortgage the future for it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He'll hold on. But not really, because that was like the scouting report. But now we look at, as Dan Shaughnessy has pointed out many times, if you look at some of the stars on this team, if you call them stars or good players on this team, these are Dombrowski guys.
Right.
So he was making trades and winning and also building up the talent. And he wasn't supposed to be able to do that. Dombrowski was supposed to be a win-now guy, but then your franchise will be in shambles once he leaves. That's not the case. He's got good players. There were good players that he brought in here. But I think they looked at the bill and said, all right, are we really getting that much out of it? Winning and losing? Are we really losing money? No. Not enough for me to make a change. So it becomes, the franchise becomes whatever it's going to become, but they don't go out of their way, and they're not going to go out of their way to add to it. They're not going to spend extravagantly, whether it's on the field, whether it's with front office people or managers. That too, the Boston Red Sox are in 2024. It's shocking to me.
So you think now? I've kind of always operated in the last couple of years under the assumptions like, okay, you want to go back and kind of reset the franchise and say, okay, we need to rebuild the farm system and get more prospects who will eventually get up to to the big leagues. I felt like they will get back to a point where they say, okay, now we are ready to throw money back at this again and bring in big-time free agents and kind of go back to our old spending ways. It doesn't sound like you think that's in the cards at any point, that they'll just be happy to be a middling franchise from here on out.
All right, well, let me ask you this. Who are we waiting for? Because in previous years, you knew there was, you had stars, but then there were guys that you were waiting for. So back in the day, it was you're waiting on Nomar. Like Dan Duquette loved Nomar. Draft first-round pick, and you knew that, hey, shortstop, you're waiting on Nomar. And then you were waiting on Dustin Pedroia. Mm-hmm. You were waiting on certain guys to come up. And, it was Jacoby Ellsbury, waiting on Jacoby Ellsbury. Like, who are you waiting on? Who's that guy in the minors that we're waiting on that's going to change things for the Red Sox? See, they're not even giving us that.
Right.
Give me somebody to wait. Who's the star I'm waiting on?
It's supposed to be Marcelo Mayer,
right?
But okay, but all right. How's that? Is he? I mean, like,
you're saying your needle doesn't move for that one?
And I thought it would, because when he was drafted, like, can you believe the Red Sox got this guy? He could have been the number 1 overall pick, and they got him in the top 5. And all right. And if you're waiting on him, what's going to change? Are we waiting on him and then the business model is going to change? When he gets to the majors, then the Red Sox are going to spend a bunch of money? So they're going to take this future shortstop, center fielder, whatever he's going to be ultimately, the star player, and then they're going to build around him? They haven't even teased us with that. And how about the reports over the summer, over the winter, that their farm system is not really what we thought their farm system was.
They have 0 pitching coming up.
Yeah. So it's supposed to be like this top 5. Well, it's not quite top 5. Yeah. All right. So what are we waiting on?
All right, we'll continue here. I want to get into a little bit of Bruins as we get up to a noontime start of NHL free agency. Some rumors around last night about what direction the Bruins might want to go. There were also some signings overnight. We talked about what was happening in the NBA last night. Some players that were potentially going to hit free agency today that apparently will not. And a couple of big names that it looks like are going to hit free agency at noontime today. So we'll talk about that coming up as we continue here on Toucher and Hardy. Ryan Johnston and Michael Holley in for the guys on this Monday morning.
Right.
98.5.
Like, let's roll the dice.
Sports Hub.
UFA market inflates the prices every year. Could you envision spending $8 million on a guy, $8 million on a cap?
I mean, the market dictates. If you're going after, you're trying to be aggressive. Chances are you're going to bump into an area where you're uncomfortable. That's just what happens. If you're going to continue to do that, you can be patient and hope that somebody falls through. But deep down, we'd like to improve our club. We'd like to be we've been in a very, very competitive team, and we want to continue to do that, put ourselves in position, health obviously being a big part of that, for a chance to take another run. That's the goal.
That is indeed the goal. Ryan Johnston, Michael Holley, back with you in for Toucher and Hardy today. Don Sweeney talking about the approach at the free agency, the start of free agency, which is coming up in about 4.5 hours. Noontime today is when you can officially start to deal with the free agent class. And for those who are just waking up, one big name that was within 24 hours of free agency did not make it. We know that for sure, which is Sam Reinhart down in Florida. Has a new 8-year contract that will be announced at some point today. We don't have financial details on that.
Bobby Bonia deal for him, too.
It's a hell of a lot better than Bobby Bonia's deal,
Yeah.
I'll tell you that. By the way, Lockhart just mentioned this off air. Adam Schefter tweeting that Bobby Bonia is going to make more today from the Mets than Brock Purdy will make in base salary this year from the 49ers. He makes $900,000. Yeah. So
by
$208,000 more for Bobby Bonilla, who retired more than 20 years ago.
Bobby Bonilla, as brilliant as that contract is, there's more there. There's a lot more meat on the bone. You talk about the Mets taking advantage of it. There are endorsement opportunities for Bobby Bonilla if he really will lean into it. There's more.
If you're like, Fidelity Retirement Plan or something like that, how is that? How do you not have Bobby Bonilla doing commercials for you?
There's another level he can get to this in his post-playing career. Now you mentioned Sam Reinhart.
Yeah.
Were you under the illusion that if Reinhart had gone to free agency, maybe the Boston Bruins would be in the
that might have been a little bit out of their price range, but here's the thing. I really want to see how much this contract is going to end up being worth. Because Sam Reinhart, really good player,
right?
Like him a lot. He had 57 goals this year. He's not that player. Like, he's a 30 goal a year guy. He's a 70 point a year guy. 57 goals was a monster year for him. I am hoping that the Panthers are paying him, especially because they kept him out of free agency. So one would assume they had to overpay him to get him to sign that deal.
What's a good guess?
I don't know. I mean, does it get into 8 figures?
What would general manager Ryan Johnston pay him?
I mean, I probably wouldn't want to go over 7 to 8.
Like, dude, I just had 57 goals this year, $7 million.
I know, but I want to pay him as a 30 goal a year guy because I don't think he's ever going to approach 50 goals.
Yeah,
the
8 years is probably the tell. You're probably right.
So
if they're the 8 years to make that number.
They're the only team that could give him 8 years.
Yeah,
so there's that security. But he was within 24 hours of going to free agency. Somebody out there was going to throw an 8-figure deal at him, like hey, we'll pay you 10 a year. So I'm hoping the Panthers massively overpaid for this guy.
8 years, $8 million,
and end up getting.
Per?
I mean, that's like that's kind of like
that's what
I would be offering. But as we just heard Don Sweeney say, start talking about free agency, high level free agency. At some point, you're going to get to a number where you're uncomfortable, and you're going to have to do it anyway if you're going to get top tier talent.
So if not Reinhart, you're looking at the Bruins, and you look at what this team is, because I got a lot of questions about what the team is right now. What's the wish list for you? Or not even, I shouldn't even say wish list. Number one on your list, and you say, I want the Bruins to get that guy. That's my guy. Who is it?
It probably ends up being Elias Lindholm. I think number one on my
finally happens.
Yes, I mean we know that they've been sniffing around this guy for a while. It feels like oftentimes this is what happens with the Bruins. Like they take runs, going back to like a guy like Thomas Caberlet back in 2011, right? Who, and think what you want about what he did when he actually got here, but they were circling around him, it felt like, for years before they finally landed him. It kind of feels like that, where we know that they've had interest. We know that they were interested in him at the trade deadline. For whatever reason, it just hasn't worked out. But that, to me, is top on the list because you need help at the center position. Like, you need a top 2 center to add to this team. I want to move Zaka over to the wing. He can continue to play with Pasternak, but give them somebody else in the middle, and they need face-off help. They need help defensively from the forward position. He's a guy who's kind of in that Selke category.
Yeah.
And so I think he checks some boxes. What concerns me is what the pecking order is here, because Sweeney said the other day, it made it sound like their top priority was more about adding a defenseman before they got to adding help up front.
Okay.
Which, I understand you need an extra body or two. I'm not sure you need a top-tier extra body defensively. But in addition to center, you have a big hole that's about to open up when Jake DeBrusk gets a contract somewhere else either.
We were talking about that off the air, and it sounds funny, but it's true.
It is.
Because
you got a 25-plus goal, generally a guy who's going to score you 25-plus. You don't have anybody who can readily step into that position.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that you look at him and say, "Oh, we should be able to do better than this." Or at a much lower scale, what you said about Reinhart. So you said Reinhart had 57 goals this year.
Right.
But he's not really that guy. So Jake DeBrusk has had a couple of years where he's had 27. But do you really believe that he's that guy? Is he the 27? And I know it doesn't sound like a big difference. This year he had 19.
Mm-hmm.
Is he a 19-goal scorer, which you feel like you can replace? Or is he a 27-goal scorer, which is harder to replace?
Yeah,
he's probably the 19.
I go the other way.
Really?
No. When Jake DeBrusk is right.
Okay.
Which,
when is that?
Well, I'll tell you when it is. It's when things around him are right. Right? Look at his down numbers. This year, when he's in a contract year, I think that creeps into his head. He was a little banged up, I think, at times during the year as well. I think we learned that at the end of the season. But let's say contract, a little extra pressure on him going into that, that contract year. I feel like that hurts his game. The other year when he really dropped off was COVID year, which, we kind of learned after the fact. Again, it was really difficult on him because he wasn't really able to be around his teammates. He wasn't able, he was kind of isolated, living by himself. Again, it was more in his head. I think once he gets his contract.
But you're not convincing me, though.
But I'm saying,
yeah,
those are the two times that I feel like his game has really kind of has fallen off. When he has his contract, when he's locked up long term and he's making his money,
Man.
I feel like he's fine.
No, listen. This is, you mean to tell me you don't step up during a contract year? Most guys go crazy during a contract year. Like
Reinhart.
I'm looking at Sam Reinhart. I look forward to it. Oh, this is when people are paying attention. This is when I have an opportunity to make the most money. And so he has a down year and a contract year because he's worried about it. See, that's what concerns me about him. And then during COVID, it's not the same, but that was the same for everybody. A lot of people have a COVID story. So show me who you are when you're facing a little bit of adversity, or where resilience is required, or special effort, special performance is required. Do you give it to me? And so that's what I say Jake DeBrusk doesn't. And then he complained about the coach. I still can't get over this. He complained about the coach. You asked for a trade. Mm-hmm. It's me or the coach. The coach goes. if you're going to be that guy, you got to show me more than.
Well, but he came back the next year. He put up career numbers the next year.
All right.
Like when Cassidy left and Montgomery came in, DeBrusk 27 goals, 50 points, career highs. Done. Right? He figured, like, new coach came in, it better fit what he wanted, and he showed it.
So I got to have the right kind of coach.
Yep.
My contract has to be taken care of, and we can't have COVID.
Listen, I'm not. I expect Jake DeBrusk is going to get more than the Bruins are willing to pay him today. So I'm not. I don't believe he is staying. I think Don Sweeney said they haven't had any productive talks with them in a long time. So it sounds like DeBrusk is hitting the market today, and somebody will pay him a good chunk of change, and probably too much and too long.
$6 million.
Yeah, I would say that's probably a safe bet.
4 years.
I would say probably
4 or
more
5
like
years.
five, maybe even 6, depending on how many suitors he's got.
6 for 36.
Yeah.
Jake DeBrusk. And then you look at that guy and you say, okay, he's good, but you're never going to look at him and say this is an all-star player.
I think ultimately, no, he's not an all-star player, but he's a really good for a good team with good players around him. I don't think that's that onerous a contract.
Yeah.
Like, I think if you look around the league at guys that are making that, you're going to see fairly similar numbers to what DeBrusk is going to give you on a regular basis. You're going to see, between 20 to 30 goals. You're going to see around 50-plus points. I mean, it's like that's kind of the going rate. And as the salary cap escalates here in the next few years, I think that contract becomes more and more affordable. But I still don't necessarily think the Bruins should just settle for DeBrusk and say, well, he's a guy that we know what we're going to get out of him, because I think there are upgrades out there.
Well, and speaking of that, I want to go back to something you said about Lindholm and how they've always been, that not always, like last year especially. In the playoffs, you could see it. You can see in the playoffs that they couldn't do something that we had taken for granted for years. Like Patrice Bergeron, face-offs, always at an advantage. And I'd say the times where it wasn't an advantage, it stood out. Mm-hmm. Like in the St. Louis series, in the Stanley Cup final. Oh, okay, he met his match in the Stanley Cup final. Like what the Blues did to the Bruins, what a lot of teams weren't able to do, and say, oh yeah, we got you.
Right.
We got a Bergeron of our own. We got a Bergeron type. But that didn't happen for pretty much the previous decade. You didn't have to worry about that. It was an issue in the playoffs, but would you say that was the number one issue for the Bruins? You said they need help at center. If you say the Bruins didn't advance in the playoffs, they didn't go further because they didn't have this, would it be a center or would it be an elite defenseman?
No, it's more of a center than a D-man.
Yeah, face-offs are a huge issue.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't have the puck. Like against the Florida Panthers, they just felt like they never had the puck. And Lindholm helps you with that. Again, the question is how much. I mean, I've seen projections of him getting, $8+ million. Like it's going to be pricey. But they really like the player. I think he helps you in a number of different ways, not just with face-offs. I think, putting him alongside Pasternak, like that, could be a really good combination for you for years to come. I think he, helps Pasta because, again, Pasta, hard to say he had a down year, but the numbers weren't quite what they were in the last couple of years before that. I think part of that is attributable to, Zacha's a good player, but maybe it's just not the right fit at the center position. Right. Like you move him over to a wing, and now you've kind of helped your overall lineup by inserting a better guy in your top two center positions. But again, how much? Like all of that is dependent on how much you are willing to go.
And then willing to go for a guy who's, Lindholm, 29? 30?
29.
Yeah, okay, so 29. And you're talking about if it's going to be pricey, it's usually both. It's pricey and it's long.
Yeah.
So are you willing to pay a guy into his mid-30s at a premium level, at a premium price?
Right. So some of the other the other rumor that's out there is that defenseman Nikita Zadorov is is their other top target here, which again, I mean, size, 6'6", got a little bit of a mean streak in him. I think he will be popular here. How much is he going to eat up? Because the other thing they have not done yet, we still don't know what Swayman's deal is going to look like. You assume they have some sort of a decent idea, but you're going into free agency knowing that a chunk of your money has already been spent on Jeremy Swayman, but you don't know how big that chunk really is yet.
And don't you feel like that deal? I mean, when I see conversations like this, they had a nasty arbitration last year, and the deal's not done yet. It's one of two things: the deal's going to be done before the show's over today.
10:01.
Or, right. Say, come on. Hey, Lockhart says, give it to me at like 9:45. Give it to me during the stack. It's either really soon or you're going to have a problem. I just don't see a problem.
I mean, the fact that they dealt Olmark away would seem to indicate that they know it's going to get done. I mean, it is. Look,
I think the deal is
going
done.
to get done at some point. It's just a question of how many teeth are we going to have to pull to get there? Like, they're going to get – he's clearly their starting goaltender. They've built everything around the fact that he's their starting goaltender this year. So that's not going to change. But how much crap are we going to have to go through before they get there?
Here's my guess. My guess is that the deal is done and that this delay has nothing to do with any kind of animosity between Swayman's camp and the Bruins. It is in tandem with something else. In other words, okay, we need to get this deal. We need to structure it in a certain way because we've got our eye on that free agent, and we're trying to get this. We're trying to make this puzzle work. And so this is what the numbers have to be, particularly in the first couple of years, for us to pull this off.
By the way, the Frank Saravelli, who one of the hockey nationalists said last night, sounds like Bruins and Swayman haven't made much progress on a new deal.
It's done. I'm sorry, Frank. I'm going to be the hockey insider here.
All right.
I got it, Frank. Don't worry about it. Deal's
Holley
done.
overrules Frank Saravelli on that. Lockhart gives us headlines. More to come. Ryan Johnston, Michael Holley in for Toucher and Hardy.
Sports Hub headlines.
NHL free agency officially starts at noon today. The Florida Panthers have already re-signed Sam Reinhart to an 8-year deal. NHL draft wrapped up over the weekend. Bruins selected 6'7" center Dean Letourneau, 25th overall. Letourneau is committed to Boston College. NBA free agency started last night. The Celtics and Luke Cornett agreed on a 1-year deal. Cornett averaged 15.6 minutes in 63 games last year. Chris Paul heads to San Antonio. He signed a 1-year deal. Kevin Love signs in Miami on a 2-year deal. And Paul George signed a 4-year, $212 million contract to go to Philadelphia. The Red Sox stopped a 2-game skid, winning 4-1 over San Diego. Devers and Durant both had home runs. Kenley Jansen got the save. Josh Winkowski picked up the win. Boston heads to Miami for a 3-game set starting tomorrow night. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by Canteen Vodka Soda. Canteen's ready-to-drink cocktails have just 99 calories, 0 carbs, and 0 sugar. Canteen Vodka Soda. Drink better. I'm Mike Lockhart. I'm Boston's home for sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Toucher and Hardy, 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Introducing Wendy's new Saucy Nugs. The nugs you love, covered in your favorite sauces. So no matter what flavor you're craving, Wendy's has you covered. Grab Wendy's new Saucy Nugs today. Open till midnight or later.
At participating U.S. Wendy's. Hours may vary by location.
Hey, it's Tony Maz, host of the Baseball Hour. Tune in each week for Trivia Tuesday, presented by Golf. Just answer the question correctly, and you could be fueling your way to Fenway with a $50 gas card, courtesy of Golf, the official fuel partner of the Boston Red Sox. Just download the Golf Pay mobile app for 5 cents off per...
beautiful ball of flavor.
And a whole lot of Boston sports.
And I have had many offers to become an insider.
Manny Ramirez gets a $2 million check from the Red Sox today.
Oh, that was part of that original
16-year, $32 million deferral. So he's got another 2 more years where he will get $2 million on July 1st from the Red Sox. So congratulations to Manny. I'm sure he, have fun with that money.
Oh yeah, Manny, good times.
Probably leave the check in his lost behind his bed somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, do not do direct deposit with Manny. If you send him a paper check, there's a chance he may never deposit it.
So. I mean, so many great Manny stories. You heard the one Manny story with the O.J. Simpson. You heard about this one?
No,
I don't know.
With the O.J. Simpson chase during the O.J. finals. That was what was that, 1994? The Knicks.
94, yeah.
Cleveland, huh?
Yeah. Knicks, yeah, right.
Yeah.
He was with Cleveland. So it was the Knicks and Rockets in the finals, and everybody is watching in the clubhouse. They're watching this O.J. Simpson chase, and Manny says, "What is everybody doing? Hey, this O.J. thing." He goes, "What happened to Chad?" All right. He thought it was his teammate, Chad
O.J.
Chad O.J. What happened to Chad?
Why is Chad?
Why
is Chad in a Bronco being chased down the L.A. freeway?
Because but it makes sense. It's like, well, why else would you be sitting around watching OJ? Right? I mean, it has to have some kind of relevance to this clubhouse.
Yeah,
that's awesome. We got some. So NHL free agency starts in 4 hours and 10 minutes, and we apparently already have a deal.
Yep,
we got a deal.
I'm not sure how this works,
all right,
but the deals are out there, and it is a former Bruin, Tyler Bertuzzi, has apparently already agreed to a 4-year deal with the Chicago Blackhawks at $5.5 million per, which is a interesting choice, I guess. Bertuzzi's agent totally misread the market last year. He ended up getting a 1-year contract in Toronto when he was looking for a long-term deal. The Bruins were potentially interested in keeping him here after his playoff run with Boston 2 years ago. And it's like, okay, he hits the market, and there apparently were not a lot of options for him. He ends up getting a 1-year deal. This year he signs 4 hours before free agency even starts. It's like, we are not getting left out without a chair when the music stops this year. We're taking what we can get. I don't know. That's interesting. I don't know if he fired his agent or not. If he didn't, he should have.
So you say what should have happened? Well, let's go back. He was a good player on what we thought, or we didn't think so, but what looked like on paper was the greatest team,
right?
In NHL history. He was a deadline pickup, a good pickup for them.
Really good.
Should they have, agent aside, if you're the Bruins, do you just kind of stick with this thing and say, look, if he's going to sign a 1-year deal?
Well, but that's the thing. He wasn't going to sign a 1-year deal. That's what.
But if this is the best you've got,
right?
Hey, let's work something out here. And, okay, obviously they didn't get that done. But how about now? If you're the Bruins, is this a guy, when you heard that Bertuzzi signed with the Blackhawks, did you think, that's a guy who really could have gotten the job done here?
See, the problem I always had with Bertuzzi, when they went out and traded for him, and it's like, in short spurts, he's going to be really good for you. Like, he's a good player. He's got some size. He's obviously got some toughness. He fits here really well. The problem is he does not stay healthy. And what he was going to, what his ask was going to be a 6-year contract at, $6 million per or something like that. And I wasn't willing to do that.
For a guy who just, you don't know.
For a guy who, when you look back at his, his time in Detroit, like just last year in Detroit, he had only played in 29 games because he broke his hand and then he came back and he broke his other hand. And it was like, it just feels like if you're going to invest this kind of money in a guy, he's got to have durability, and Bertuzzi over the course of his career really hasn't. He's a guy who will play in 70 games or 65 games, not 82. And if you're going to pay that guy for that amount, that amount of time, need him to be better than that. So he goes up to Toronto on this one-year deal because he was looking for a contract that wasn't out there. I think the Bruins would have happily given him a one-year deal, but that wasn't what he was looking for. By the time he got that deal in Toronto, the chairs were all given out. The Bruins had no money left to spend.
They probably would have happily given him 4 years. What is this, $5 million?
4 times 5.5?
Come on.
This is
you do that.
A lot more palatable a deal.
Right.
But the fact that he's taking that with Chicago tells me that, again, there wasn't that much interest out there for a long-term contract. I mean, because, Chicago's, like, they're a ways away.
Yeah.
You know, they've got
a great player.
You know, they've got some money to spend,
Yeah.
but they're a ways away. It's not like he's signing with a contender for 4 years and $5.5 million. I think if you had asked him last year, this is below market value for him. So the fact that he didn't have a good year in Toronto this year, it wasn't a good fit. Now he hits the market again, and he's basically seems to be taking whatever's out there even before free agency opens. Like, I just don't think there's that level of interest. I think people must have the same hold, whatever's holding them back, it's holding everybody back.
Yeah, he only had 43 points last year. He did play 80 games, but
with the level of talent on that Toronto team offensively, like, how do you you should be capable. You're a guy is capable of scoring 30. He didn't even sniff that with playing with that group of players.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing that group can do, it's score.
Right.
So you should be able to take advantage of it. Right.
So he's off the board today. If you were thinking about a potential reunion, that apparently is not going to happen. The one name we haven't. Well, there's several names we haven't gotten to, but it looks like Jake Guentzel's going to land in Tampa. That was reported last night. They traded for his rights. His question was like, are you going to get him signed? Well, apparently they're going to get him signed, which probably means that Steven Stamkos hits the market at noon today.
That's great.
Which is interesting, to say the least.
Where's the fit?
A lot of rumors of Buffalo I'm seeing.
Oh, that would be horrible.
I know,
disappointing.
Right?
That would be horrible.
Like, what?
Why? What? You
That's
can't.
it.
Some contenders got to be willing to give Steven Stamkos some money.
Don't do it. Now, does Buffalo have?
Who knows?
No. No. I'm not talking about players. I don't want to ask about any players in Buffalo. I want to. Do they still have the longest? They have the longest streak, or is it the Jets?
No, I think
the
it's
longest non-playoff streak.
Yeah, it's
pretty, isn't it? The Buffalo streak.
They are tied with the Jets. It's been
So is it
13 years since the last playoff appearance.
It's so bad. Now, this would be like the Jets. Okay, I'd say the Sabres are worse than the Jets in this sense. The Jets have a long non-playoff streak, but they've had different coaches along the way. The Sabres are so bad that they have brought back a coach who was a part of the streak in the first place. That would be like the Jets. That would be like the Jets, like saying, you know what? Here's our new coach, Rex Ryan. What? What are you doing?
Call up Kotite. What's he up to?
Is Ray Rhodes available?
Eric, we're bringing back. We are announcing we're bringing back Eric Mangini to coach our team.
All right, let's. We've got a couple more hours to go. We can take your calls at 617-779-0985. NHL free agency is about 4 hours away. NBA free agency started last night, and I would say he's the biggest name on the list this year, right?
Oh, Paul George.
Paul George.
Paul George is the guy.
Has a new address. We can talk about that coming up as we continue. Ryan Johnston, Michael Holley in for Toucher and Hardy on a Monday morning.
Stay tuned for more Toucher and Hardy on headlines.
NBA free agency started last night. The Celtics and Luke Cornett agreed on a one-year deal. Cornett averaged 15.6 minutes in 63 games for the Green last season. Clippers have re-signed James Harden to a 2-year, $70 million deal. Chris Paul heads to the Spurs for $11 million. Kevin Love heads back to Miami on a 2-year deal. And Paul George has signed a 4-year, $212 million deal to go to the 76ers. Kelly Oubre has also signed with them for 2 years. The Red Sox stopped a 2-game skid, winning 4-1 over the San Diego Padres yesterday. Devers got the scoring kicked off in the first.
Love is in the air, but not in the broadcast booth, apparently. Duran drives this one to right field, heading around the ball, and
Red Sox head to Miami for a 3-game series starting tomorrow. NHL free agency will officially begin at noon. Looks like Tyler Bertuzzi will be heading to Chicago. And in the Euro Cup, England made a late comeback yesterday to beat Slovakia 2-1, and Spain crushed Georgia 4-1. Sports Hub headlines, they are brought to you by Unicare. They've teamed up with Charlie Coyle, Mass State and local police, the professional firefighters of Mass, and Bruins Radio of face-offs for first responders. Just text or call 988 now. Sports Hub headlines, they are brought my name is Mike Lockhart, 98.5 The Sports Hub. Your next headlines in 30 minutes.
Boston's best sports talk. There's an app for that. Download the Sports Hub app for loads of stuff. Absolutely free. Connect with the shows, get podcasts, and more. Get it where you get your apps. Or at 985sportshub.com.
Twitch feed of this is going to be used all around the internet.
Get up.
The cat is finally out of the bag.
Get up.
We're back. Toucher and Hardy.
Get up.
98.5 The Sports Hub.
Back here, hour number 3 of Toucher and Hardy. Ryan Johnston, Michael Holley in for the guys today. We got Mike Lockhart on headlines. Ryan Beaton, Kyle Fabrizio are producing.
Excellent production. I mean, you can keep this going here. I mean, if you're not awake, you get in the car, you hear this.
Oh, we could just do the rest of the show
you're
like
turning this up. Turn it up.
Remember Scott Farrell on the bench, where he would just do the show with rock music playing the entire night.
You ever try that? You ever try to do a talk show with You ever do that with the hockey show?
Oh yeah,
with a little music going, like the entire time.
Not the entire time.
15 minutes, 20. Is that the max? That's more like a highlight package.
Yeah.
And then this happened. Then this guy scored his 28th goal to put them up 5-3.
Problem is the music's got to fit the mood swings of the show too. You know,
it's good. It's good call. All right, now I'm gonna ask you a question. I should know the answer to.
Okay.
Who is this? Who's the artist?
Got me.
You don't know? You don't know?
No.
I thought you would know.
Not a clue.
Lockhart, you know?
This really isn't my scene.
Oh no, it's not your scene.
Yeah. I mean, it's fine for what it is.
It's fine. That's it.
Like, it's fine.
It's better than fine.
This just isn't what I.
This doesn't do it for you?
Yeah, it's
oh man, come on. I'm disappointed, RJ. This is.
Now I've heard
System of a Down.
Okay, there we go.
Now I've heard multiple times on the midday show that they turned you on to Chris Stapleton at the Super Bowl, right?
Yes, they did. I asked for it. I said, "Look, I need something." I feel like my music. Okay, I love lots of music, lots of styles, but my country music knowledge very low, familiarity very low. So they gave me. Said, "Okay, how do you want to start?" I said, something like, I want good singing, something that's a little accessible before I get deep in the woods here. And they gave me Chris Stapleton. Fantastic.
It's awesome.
Fantastic. I mean, probably 9 out of 10.
I'm with you. I'm not a huge country music guy either, but Chris Stapleton, he's got that soulful voice.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Very. A lot of his songs just real simple.
Can bring me in.
You
Brought
know?
me in immediately.
Yeah.
Didn't make me feel like, because, there's certain genres where if you're not in, people kind of look down on you like, oh, wait a minute. You don't know. You don't know. This is not heavy enough. This is not deep enough. You feel like an outsider. You're just trying to get in. I was in immediately. Come on into the party. And so, yeah. And so System of a Down, System of a Down, I got that. This is probably mid 2000, like early 2000s, somewhere around there. 2000. 2001-ish. Yeah, something like that.
Can't hear Mike.
Yeah, Mike's song. Okay.
All right.
Come on, rookie. Come on, turn the mic.
Yeah, it's a big opportunity for you, Mike. You move over to this side of the glass. Got to make sure that microphone.
Don't even turn the mic
on. Michael, Paul George is relocating across the country. We learned at 3:30 this morning. Adrian Wojnarowski, who is I just saw on TV a moment ago, is I assume still up. I think Woj probably didn't sleep last night.
He had to get ready for this. He knew
Free
this was
agency
coming.
started at 6 p.m. It's like, yeah, we're not sleeping today. So he was tweeting at 3:30 this morning that Paul George leaving the Clippers to sign a 4-year, $212 million max contract with the Sixers. $53 million per, which as of right now, I believe makes him the second highest paid player in the NBA. The Celtics, far and away the best team in the East this year, end up winning the championship. How much better are the Sixers today than they were when you woke up yesterday? Are they a threat now in the Eastern Conference?
Not a threat. Not a threat. How much better are they? They lost in the first round last year to the Knicks. And I know there were some special circumstances there. Joel Embiid had come back from an injury maybe 3 weeks earlier, and Embiid had some issues during that series.
Right.
But they won 47 games last year, Philadelphia. So kick them up a notch. They're not a first-round loser. They are a second-round kind of team, maybe on the fringe of the conference finals. But we said the same thing about the Knicks when they just traded a bunch of capital for Mikal Bridges. They lost to the Knicks, by the way. The Sixers lost to the Knicks in the first round. So are they better? Are they better than the Knicks right now? No. So if I'm looking at potential threats in the East, I'd say the number one threat in the East is New York. And then maybe go down to put Philadelphia and Indiana. Oh, remember Indiana?
What about Milwaukee?
Don't like it. I don't like it. Milwaukee, maybe the best player out of the teams that I mentioned, because you still have Giannis. I like Giannis more than Embiid. I do. But still, you're looking at Middleton.
He's always hurt.
Yeah. You got Middleton. You got Dame, who can't guard anybody. Dame is not an – we just got to – I can't emphasize this enough. Dame is not an average defender. Dame is not a slightly below average defender. He's bad. He is a bad defensive player, just bad. And I know Celtics fans, you know what that looks like because you saw Luka in the finals. What the Celtics did to Luka in Game 3 was just cruel. That was bullying. Like, they just took advantage of him. He couldn't move, and they just went around him. So Dame is at that level defensively, and you need more than that. I just think Milwaukee missed the window. I think the window is closed for them. So if you look at throw them in the mix. Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Indiana, I think all on the same level. I think the Knicks are a tier above those teams, and then you have the Celtics.
So here is your updated betting odds for the Eastern Conference.
This is where we get to make some money. Let's go.
Yeah. By the way,
let's go.
Toucher and Hardy brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel.
Let's make this moment work.
Future bets coming for you.
So here is your Eastern Conference winner odds. The Celtics are at plus 145.
Okay.
So you're basically getting 1.5 to 1. The Sixers are second at plus 400 this morning.
What?
The Knicks are at plus 450.
Okay.
So at 4.5 to 1.
All right.
The Bucks are at plus 650. 6.5 to 1.
Then they have the Pacers or Miami after that.
They have Orlando and the Heat and the Cavs all even at plus 2,000. 20 to 1 shot. The Pacers are at plus 3,000 right now to win the East. 30 to 1.
That playoff run didn't do it for him.
No,
didn't do it for anybody.
Apparently
I mean,
the bettors not big fans. So they got the Pacers are the 8th ranked team in the East according to the bettors.
The Pacers played the Celtics better than anybody else in the postseason and got swept.
Yeah.
But I thought, and they're a young team. I think they showed you something. Cleveland is weird. Cleveland's a weird team because I thought they played better when Mitchell was out. Once Mitchell, defensively, they did everything right, but they played like a team that was missing its best player.
Right.
And I still have no idea why they fired their coach. It was a personality clash with Donovan Mitchell. I'm not sure. I think J.B. Bickerstaff did everything you could expect a coach to do with that collection of players. They are good. Like, Donovan Mitchell is a good player. Once again, it's almost like we're talking about Paul George.
Right.
Really good player, not overrated, but not a guy who is going to take you out of the playoffs, who's going to end your season for you. Maybe they wanted more development from Mobley. Jared Allen was hurt during that playoff series, so he really couldn't take advantage of Porzingis being out. I think they did exactly what they were supposed to do against the Celtics. They were competitive. They weren't good enough. They lost.
Yeah. Even the Celtics players said that was the toughest matchup they had all postseason. Yeah.
By the way, congratulations to J.B. Bickerstaff, whose consolation prize is he gets a 5-year deal in Detroit. So congratulations, you're getting a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's I'm not sure it's going to be the best experience for you, but he's getting a nice. I mean, he got fired after 1 year at, what was it, $78 million?
Who, Monty?
Yeah.
Monty Williams did.
Yeah.
In Detroit.
Yeah. When they fired Monty Williams, 6-year deal, $78 million, gone after 1
year.
I think he's getting paid by 2 teams right now.
And Phoenix still.
I believe they're
money?
still paying him too.
So congratulations to J.B. Bickerstaff. I mean, he's going to get paid. I'm not sure how long you're going to be there, but
Detroit
congratulations. You're never going to have to work again if you don't want to.
Exactly. So, I mean, you imagine negotiating that deal. So, the previous coach, you were done with him after a year, right?
Right.
How much you pay him? So you didn't like him.
Yeah, we still owe him like $65 million.
So you think I'm going to be better than that guy. How much did you pay him? Okay, so I need a little bit more.
All right, we're going to get back into a little hockey. Ty Anderson scheduled to join us from 98.5thesportshub.com. We'll get his thoughts on the opening of free agency. By the way, there is a report out this morning about Steven Stamkos' future and where he might wind up. And among the, I believe, 5 or 6 teams that they listed, the Boston Bruins are not on that list. So if you were wondering. But we will talk to him about who might be on the list today as the Bruins and the rest of the NHL get ready to open up the checkbook starting at noon. Ryan Johnston, Michael Holley in for the guys here on Toucher and Hardy.
Update at this point in time, I suspect that Jake will head to the UFA and test the market. Remain consistent that we have been in negotiations with Jake, haven't had any productive talks in quite some time, but at the end of the day, that's his prerogative to see what July 1 brings for him.
Johnston, Michael Holley in for Toucher and Hardy today. Be an interesting list of people running through here this week.
McCarthy tomorrow, too.
McCarthy and who?
Holley
I think it's going to be Michael
Is it
Holley.
you? You're here tomorrow?
Yes, baby.
So I couldn't be here tomorrow.
Back to back.
Not that I wanted McCarthy to think he's the second choice. But
now he knows.
I will be back.
Confirmed.
I'm going to be back here on Wednesday with Beetle.
Nice.
What?
Yeah, Beetle's making the shift to morning on Wednesday.
Getting out early, huh?
Yeah, I think that's exactly
Okay, I
it.
was
It's
gonna
like,
say,
hey,
yeah,
I
yeah.
can be done by 10 a.m.
Right.
or I can stick
You
around
mean
here
to tell
until
me
2.
I can be out? I can be out at 10?
Day before the 4th, I can be done work at 10.
That's smart.
Not bad.
Good job, Beetle.
And then Friday morning, it's I think it's me, Cattles, and Kendra is the triumvirate.
Man,
here.
you're a machine. Look at that. 4th of July week. People taking time off. No, Ryan Johnston getting it done.
A wise man once said, Michael, no days off.
No days off.
No days off. Thursday will be a day off, but there really
Other
are no
than
days
that,
off.
nope.
There are no days off for Ty Anderson, 98.5thesportshub.com. He covers the Bruins, who, like the rest of the NHL, have their checkbooks at the ready today as free agency officially opens at noon. We're seeing some news overnight. Again, Sam Reinhart is staying in Florida. Not sure if we know the number on that yet. Jake Guentzel apparently is going to be a member of the Tampa Bay Lightning for the next 7 years, potentially longer. I don't know. And then we've got the Bruins, who have some holes to fill. And how are they going to do that? So we welcome in Ty Anderson now on the Volkswagen Dealers Expert Hotline. Good morning, Ty.
Hey, good morning, guys. How we doing?
Good. All right. So if you're Don Sweeney, what is at the top of your priority list today?
Well, I think you got to get a center and you got to get a scoring wing. You might need to get 2 wings, honestly, and you're going to have to make a value play somewhere else. Maybe that's on the back end or one of these wingers that you want to sign. Can be more of a value play, but you got just under $22 million. Jeremy Swayman is not signed as of right now, and it doesn't seem like that's going to happen by the day's end. And that money can go quicker than you realize, right? And so there's an element here of you want to be in on the frenzy, the madness, whatever you want to call it, but you also have to make moves that make fiscal sense for your team. And I think if you're the Bruins, attack the right areas, which for them is down the middle and on the wings. And I can deal with them making a smaller ad on the back end. I think this market might be good for that. But you sort of look at what's happening, and you mentioned off the jump here, Sam Reinhart and Jake Guentzel, like the scoring talent and the real scoring talent could dry up pretty quickly. And so you got to be in on one of those guys, in my opinion, especially you look at the way their season ended, losing 1-goal games. I think they had 5 goals, I want to say, over their final 3 playoff games. Like, you got to reinforce the offense here. And so that's got to be priority number 1 and 2, in my opinion, if you're Don Sweeney.
Did I read it right that Sweeney the other day seemed to indicate that defense might be more at the top of their list? And there's rumors out there about Nikita Zadorov today. But did I read that right? Because to me, I'm with you. Center and wing are higher up on my priority list than adding a big body defensively who's going to cost a decent amount of money. I know they need some reinforcements back there, but it would not be something that I would necessarily be shopping for on day one.
No, and I would agree with you, especially I think if you look at sort of the names that are out there on the back end. The name linked to the Bruins, obviously, is Nikita Zadorov, who was split last year between Calgary and Vancouver. He's an exciting player. for good and bad reasons. He's massive, 6'6", but sometimes his hockey sense eludes him, and he'll put himself woefully out of position in search of a big hit. He's gotten better at carrying the puck. His offensive instincts have gotten better for a big man. But to your point, he rejected a $5 million a year contract in Vancouver. I'm not necessarily super hot on the idea of paying Nikita Zadorov $5.5 or $6 million for 6 or 7 years. And the other part of that, Ryan, is that he's going to probably age into a bottom pairing role. He might be a bottom pairing guy for your team right now, based on your ideal complexion of your top 4. At the very best, I think he's a second pairing guy for your team. And so when you have these glaring needs, and especially in a top heavy market up front, like we look at the free agents here, you look at that free agent center group, and it's Elias Lindholm, it's Chandler Stevenson, it's Sean Monahan. You can put Steven Stamkos and Matthew Shane in there, even though they're probably more wingers than centers moving forward. And then it's a cataclysmic drop in terms of the quality of the guys available. Like, you got to get one of those guys. And because you can get a good defenseman, I think, on day 2 or by 7 p.m. on day 1. I don't know if you can get a good center at that same time frame. So that part is confusing, and it would really shock me if that's where they went. But those are the rumblings right now. There is sizable chatter or heat, whatever you want to call it, in terms of them getting Nikita Zadorov.
I got to tell you, Ty, my favorite diplomatic hockey statement so far of today is, sometimes his hockey sense eludes him. That's a nice one. He just plays dumb sometimes. Like, that's some dumb stuff. But let me ask you this, because I've anointed myself today as an NHL insider. I believe the Swayman deal is done. It's done. But I'm not an insider. What do you think the story is with this contract, and what do you think the numbers are going to be ultimately?
Listen, when it comes to the Bruins, Michael, sometimes being an outsider is the best way to do it, because Don Sweeney does not like scoops. He does not like sourcing. So sometimes being on the outside is actually the best way to break a story with the Bruins. So I love that, if that's the case. I just think that this is a negotiation that is going to be difficult. Now, they're aided by the fact that he's an RFA, so not like other teams are coming to him and knocking on his door. Offer sheets, the NHL, are fake. The price is just too grand, in my opinion, versus NBA offer sheets where it's just money. There are picks. There's an unwritten code among NHL GMs not to do offer sheets. Every offer sheet you see and every offer sheet you've seen for the last, decade and a half has been a revenge-based offer sheet for the most part. So I don't think they're real. It's not a real tool in the CBA. It just doesn't exist. So they're lucky in that regard, but he's going to cost $8 million. The idea that you're going to get a hometown discount, it kind of went out the window. It went out the window when you took him to arbitration. It went out the window when he played well. He was an all-star, and then he started 12 of your 13 playoff games, and he had a .933 and 13 goals saved above expected. Like, once that happens and he delivers to the level that he realistically could with the team in front of him, like, your idea of getting a sweetheart deal went out the window. And so you're going to have to pay the money. I think anything between 7.5 and 8 million is kind of where he lands. If you get him at 7, that's a win. I don't know how realistic that is, though. And so if you're going to keep holding out hope that, or driving a hard line saying we got to get him below this number, like, I don't know how realistic that is. And so what I can say is the Bruins do not want to go back to arbitration with him. They don't think that's a viable solution. I can't blame them based on the tenor that came out of arbitration last year between the parties. So it gets done. It's just, it's a difficult contract. And what bothers me about it, Michael, is that the season ended on May 15th. How do you not get this done? How is the order of operations not Swayman done first, then the Allmark trade? That way you have an exact sort of understanding of what you can and can't spend.
Well,
right now,
bare minimum, Ty, the Olmark trade takes away whatever bargaining power the Bruins had at that point. Because what's your backup plan? I mean, if Swayman ultimately says, "Listen, I'm not going to play for what you're going to pay me," like, you really don't have anything you can come back to him with.
You do have a backup plan.
Korpisalo and Bussy?
That's your backup plan. That's it. You just said it. How do you feel about that, Ty?
I mean, geez, Jonas Korpisalo, I don't even want to get started on that whole thing, because now, like, you may experience the what do you want to call it? The consequences of adding that contract. You might feel them today. You may already be feeling them. He makes $3 million, signed for the next 4 years, coming off one of the worst years of any goalie in the league right now. And we're looking at a market that might be inflated. If Zadorov is making $6 million or close to it, Bertuzzi's going to be signing with the Blackhawks. He's going to be making $5.5 million. You got needs. You mentioned it, like, off the jump here. A lot of these guys that they're moving on from, or could be moving on from, the guys they need to get, centers and wings and even a defenseman, like, there might not be room to get legit upgrades at every spot because of the cap situation and the market. There's like 6 or 7 teams that have over $25 million to spend, and they're going to spend it. And so if that happens, like, you're already kind of against it, right? Like, I was playing around on Cap Friendly. Let me put it this way. I was playing around on Cap Friendly last night. I signed a center for $7.5 million. I signed a defenseman, Zadorov, for $5.75 million, which I didn't necessarily want to do, but let's just say they do it. Mm-hmm. And then I signed a wing for $2.75 million. That's going to be a mid-tier wing. That's not going to be like a Tyler Toffoli or a Jonathan Marchessault or anybody like that.
That's not replacing DeBrusk's production.
Exactly. And then I waived Jonas Korpisalo down to the minors, replaced him with Brandon Bussy, and I signed Jeremy Swayman for $8 million. I had one extra skater. You know how much cap space I had? Less than $500,000. Like, it's going to be hard to build out a roster with this guy, being sort of on, your books at that number. And so you got to get Swayman signed because you don't have a real backup option. I know this is a long way of going there, but Korpisalo is not your starter, and the Bruins have completely eliminated any sense of leverage by their order of operations here in terms of how they've done things this offseason. So I'm not panicking about it, but it's an odd way to handle your most important internal signing of the year, no doubt.
Ty Anderson, 98.5thesportshub.com, is with us. Is today the day that Elias Lindholm finally becomes a Bruin?
It does feel that way. The rumblings will not go away in terms of bringing him in. You sort of look at what's been happening elsewhere. Could Carolina be in play? I feel like they're more looking for a wing than a center. It just feels like Boston's need for a center is glaring, right? And Calgary has a lot of cap space. Vancouver, was making some room for a big signing, it felt like. But, well, he played in both those cities, and he couldn't come to terms with either team. So I think he's bound to come out east, and I think the Bruins are the natural sort of contender. And so I believe that is sort of where that's going to go. I think 7.5 is probably where that's going to be, maybe 7. My biggest question with Elias Lindholm is he a legit top line center? He had great years with Calgary, playing with elite talent, Johnny Gaudreau, Matthew Tkachuk. Pastrnak can prop him up, I would imagine, but is he a legit top-line center on a Stanley Cup contending team? He's probably more of a 2, but if the price gets crazy, do you maybe focus on a guy like Sean Monahan, who was the 6th overall pick in 2013, 29 years old, coming off a 29-goal season, really great at faceoffs as well. He's a left shot versus a right shot, but those are kind of their options. And then Chandler Stevenson. Like, you got to get one of these big fish at the center position. Everything we've talked about so far, like, you want to make a value play on the wings? Sure. There's enough guys out there that you can sell me on that. You got to get a center Lindholm feels like their guy. We'll see if it plays out that way, but he's one of three guys that at that position you look at and say, you got to get one of them. It's going to suck. You're going to get diminishing returns at some point. You're going to hope you get 4 good years out of whoever you sign there, but you got to get one of these big fish. Otherwise, you're just repeating the same thing and saying we got Matthew Poitras and we're going to be all right. And I don't know if that's a great approach to take when you have this kind of cap space.
Who's on the, maybe not even necessarily for the Bruins, but who, now that Reinhardt's off the market, looks like Guentzel's off the market, who are you most interested in seeing where they land and how much?
Yeah, I mean, if we're keeping it to guys that I think could fit on the Bruins, Warren Fogle in Edmonton had a great year, career high in goals and points, excellent on the PK. I think he could replace, like if you try to replace Jake DeBrusk in the aggregate, he would be a guy that I would look at and say the Bruins should bring him in. If we're talking league-wide, a guy that I'm fascinated to see where he goes, it's Jeff Skinner. Jeff Skinner has played 1,006 NHL games his career. He's never made the playoffs. That's insane. He's 32 years old. He's never made the playoffs. So where does he go? He has a chance to pick his location, and he's been an underrated scoring threat the last 3 years. Looks like his career was kind of like teetering for a little bit there, but he's actually bounced back offensively in a big way. Where does he land? I'm really curious. Jonathan Marchessault, this guy is the all-time leader for the Golden Knights in goals, assists, points, games played. He was a Conn Smythe in 2023. They're going to walk away from him in Vegas, it looks like. So where does he go? That's a guy I'm curious about. But for the Bruins' point of view on the right wing, Victor Arvidsson, a guy who was great in Nashville, injuries last year, but still almost a point per game, could be a good value play for the Bruins. And on the back end, we talked about Zadorov, but you know, what about a guy like Brendan Dillon, a guy who plays with some nasty, can play some big minutes. He's really incorporated some offense into his game the last few years. Had a career high 8 goals a year ago, career high 21 assists 2 years ago. This is a guy who 6'4", 220, 230. He plays that physical playoff style game. That's a guy that if I'm the Bruins, I'd be really interested in trying to acquire, trying to sign. So this is a good market for every position, in my opinion, except center, once you get beyond the big guns. And it is a disastrous market in goal. If you're a team looking for a goalie, this market stinks. You got Cam Talbot's probably the best option. And then after that, you're looking at Ilya Samsonov, who we saw the Bruins absolutely smoke in the playoffs for, 4 of his 5 starts. And then a whole bunch of veteran fringe number 3 guys. And so if you're a team like, say, Toronto, I'm really curious what you do on the goalie front there, because you need somebody behind Joseph Woll or to push him as a 1B. And so I'm curious how that all plays out, but there are some really good veteran options when you get deeper into the wings of this free agent class. And I have a feeling the Bruins are going to add one of those types. It's just a matter of where it is on their board.
Ty, quickly, they had the NHL draft this past weekend. Bruins took Dean Letourneau, a 6'7" center in the first round. He's committed to Boston College. Just tell us what you know about this guy.
Yeah, he's definitely a project. You look at the frame, 6'7", as you mentioned. One thing that stands out about him is that when you read scouting reports and you talk to people about him, like, his skating is a strength. And typically when you talk about a 6'7" big guy, skating is the weakness, right? And so to have a guy who's that big but has the skating game and is he's already on top of that with his game, like, that's impressive, right? And so he's going to BC this year. He's going a year early, actually. He was supposed to be playing in the USHL this year, but one of BC's best players, Will Smith, is actually going pro this year. He's going to San Jose, and so there was an opening there for Letourneau to jump in early, and he took that opportunity. And he's going to require patience, right? And this is where it gets interesting for the Bruins, in my opinion, is because the Bruins typically haven't been patient with their prospects, or they haven't had the luxury of being patient with their prospects. Typically, they've been saying, no, we got Bergeron and we got Krejci, we got Chara. Like, we got 3 years. We got to get this guy in here, or we're going to trade him right away. Like, so they're in a unique spot here where they have to be patient. They have to be willing to deal with the potentially slow developmental curve. Letourneau thinks that he's going to play 1 or 2 years at BC before going pro. I think he's probably more 2 to 3. So he wants to be like a quick riser. And what's funny is, you mentioned he's 6'7". When he gets drafted, they say, "What do you want to work on?" He says, "I want to get bigger." My man, you're already huge. You're good. Don't worry about it. And so that's something that's kind of interesting. But he's going to be at BC. It really, I think what's going to be notable about this season is, like, is he a bottom 6 guy, or does he have the ability to move into the top 6? Because if he's playing top 6 minutes, he's playing all situations. Like, that 1 to 2 year timeline in college, it makes more sense. If he's in a third line, fourth line role, not on the power play, not on the PK, it's probably more 2 to 3 years. But overall, the Bruins went for the home run here. They didn't play it safe, and I think when you're a team that needs talent, pure talent, I respect that approach. So he might be a bust, but they're going for the upside here, and I think the Bruins are a team that needs to shoot for upside versus drafting another third or fourth liner. And so I respect the approach in that sense. And if they're wrong, they're wrong. But if they're wrong because they swung for the fences versus trying to get an infield single, and I respect that approach.
Ty Anderson, 98.5 thesportshub.com. You can read his coverage of whatever the Bruins do today. Appreciate the time, Ty. Good to talk to you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, we will continue here. We got NBA on the table with free agency. We got NHL free agency. Already deals starting to pop up this morning. Lockhart's going to give us Sports Hub headlines, get us updated on all of it. Back with more of Toucher and Hardy, Ryan Johnston, Michael Holley in for the guys. to about probably the early 90s was on our playlist. And so you had like Hank Williams Sr.
Oh,
all the way up to Hank Williams Jr.
So were you taking requests? Or you just had to come up with the...
No, it was like, and that was the thing. So
was that the old school? You had to follow the, it was like a little format?
No, see, this is the thing. So this was a really small hometown radio station, locally owned, the whole thing. So there was no music director who printed out, here's what you're playing today. It's like, no, they took a kid from Philly who had just moved to North Dakota to do sports and said, all right, so for like 3 hours every midday,
you gotta play some country music.
Here is a like phone book size thing of all the country music that we had, in the CD library. Play what you want. With the exception of, it's like you have to play like 250 songs an hour, like 360 songs an hour. And I'm like, okay. So I'm scrolling through and I'm finding like non-country music stuff that's in there. Like there's Eagles songs from the 70s that are considered country and things like that. I'm like, I'm playing that. I know that song. I'll listen to that one. And that's the way they did it. It was like, just play what you want.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah.
And you didn't talk much. You just...
Well, I did, but like, it was more like, here's what the weather is going to be today. Like I wasn't going in depth into the music.
Yeah. Here's another Eagles song.
Yeah.
Behind the track.
It's like, hey, don't forget, we've got a college basketball game coming up tonight that I'll be calling,
Do that whole insightful. This next artist thought he would be an accountant. However, after one night at karaoke, got the attention of a music executive, and now here's the hit. Down on My Luck, right here on, what was the station? What was the call number?
1260 KDL.
Oh, AM.
Oh, it was AM. Oh, yeah. Oh, it was AM. We had an FM too, but I wasn't allowed on the FM.
You couldn't pick your own songs on the FM dial.
Yeah, no, that was
coming up next on 1260.
I would have been far better suited to DJ over there, but the owner's daughter was the midday person over there, so I wasn't going to get to display.
Oh, that's it. Holding it down.
Fred Toucher started a country station, too. He had to crank a generator to get the station going.
Now, where is this?
That was in Cummings, Georgia.
In Georgia.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? The best was, so I basically worked 6 days a week, like a lot of people.
Like you do now.
The
same thing?
Exactly. But my Sunday shift was either I would be board opping generally early in the afternoon, either a Twins game or a Vikings game, depending on the season. And then after that was a polka show.
Oh, that's great.
It came on an old reel-to-reel. They used to mail us every week. They would send us this giant reel-to-reel tape, and I would string up the reel-to-reel and press play on that, and for the next hour and a half, it was polka music nonstop. That was my gig on Sunday afternoons.
See,
wow.
I feel like if you can do that, if you've gotten through that, you can do anything. Like that, nothing will intimidate you on radio. You can do. You had a country show, and then you had the polka thing.
Yeah,
and then Twins and Vikings.
Come on. High school and junior college sports. It doesn't get any better than that.
That's it. And you did it in North Dakota.
Yeah. It's the only place I could have done it at that point. It's like they were willing to hire me when few people were. So, worked out.
And you didn't have a special, radio name.
No,
it was just
never.
Just went with your.
Me. I'm a genuine article.
Didn't switch. Well, you can switch it up a little bit. Like, hey, listen, I don't want to be typecast.
I never wanted to do that. Like it at the college radio station, like everybody had their.
You didn't have a nickname.
Name. I never did.
Just say Ryan Johnston.
It's like, yeah, it's good enough.
RJ's. That's as far as we go.
Yeah, but that's been like people have been calling me RJ since high school.
Yeah,
that was before it even got into broadcasting.
Oh, it makes sense, of course. Yeah. Got to be RJ.
All right. We have been talking about NHL free agency. We had Ty Anderson on a few minutes ago. We're going to talk a little bit of the Celtics, who are literally putting the entire band back together for another run as teams around them are trying to catch up. Paul George, again, the details on that deal overnight, 4 years, $212 million to go to the Sixers. And so we will talk to Jared Weiss, going to join us coming up on the other side after the headlines, get his thoughts on the Celtics' very limited options for this offseason, But how about those teams that are trying to catch them? So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the draft from last week and a whole lot more with him. Coming up next, Ryan Johnston, Michael Holley in for the guys here on Toucher and Hardy.
98.5 The Sports Hub.
Fourth and final hour for Ryan Johnston and Michael Holley, and for Toucher and Hardy today. We're going to talk some NBA, and not only has Paul George signed a 4-year, $212 million contract with the Sixers overnight. Woj happened there at 3:30 a.m. Wojnarowski just tweeting a few minutes ago that Tyrese Maxey deal is done in Philadelphia. 5 years, $204 million. So altogether, the Sixers on those two guys have spent $416 million.
Yeah, they're going for it.
16, so add that in, too.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Kelly Oubre has signed for 2 years, $16 million, so add that in.
Peanuts.
Yeah.
Peanuts.
Nothing.
Is he even going to see the court for money like that? My goodness. There was a time when a, $8 million a year contract was big news.
Sure. Not a problem now. Not a problem. Kelly Oubre. Kelly Oubre was a nice player, big money for him. But Philadelphia is clearly going for it right now, and the question for them is not star power, but what do they do? How do their stars kind of work together?
Well, let's ask Jared Weiss. He covers the Celtics in the NBA for The Athletic. He joins us right now on the Volkswagen Dealers Expert Hotline. Good morning, Jared.
Why do I have to answer the question?
Well, that's what we bring him on the show. I mean, that's like, you didn't realize it at the time when you said yes, but, we expect answers out of you.
That's why you're getting that Kelly Oubre money. You got to be able to answer the question.
You don't have anything to cover Celtics-wise today. They're bringing the whole band back. This is the most boring day of the year for the Celtics. There's no free agency news coming.
If you want a whole segment on Luke Cornett, I can give you a whole segment on Luke Cornett. That's what I get paid for.
Alex Cora. Dead silence.
Alex Cora said the other day, talking about the trade deadline, that if we don't get better, the teams around us are going to get better, right? So we're going to essentially get worse. The Celtics really can't get a whole lot better. How much better are the teams around them getting with the deal that the Knicks made last week, with the signings that the Sixers have made overnight now into this morning? How much closer do you think those teams are getting to the Celtics level right now?
Let's say they can hear the fireworks over the border right now. That's for sure. It's like the Sixers are legitimately climbing to their level at this point. The Knicks were getting really close. It potentially really got that level, but to put a big three together with three really good all-NBA guys, that's enough to be like, this is a championship contender, when there's a team out there in Boston that obviously was great last season and should be great again next season, but Kristaps Porzingis is hurt, and they don't know what they're going to get out of their key center for the entire year. So, yeah, I think the Celtics should come into the season looking at it as we have a real fight on our hands here for the East, because replacing Tobias Harris with Paul George is one of the great glow-ups that you could pull off at the NBA. They're getting a player that's similar to Harris, except that he's drastically better in many ways. And Paul George he had shot over 40% last year. He's one of the best playmaking wings in the NBA. He could be a really great defender when he wants to be. I mean, he has been one of the better players in the NBA for years, and he's still at that level for a little while. So to lock him in, I think Maxi will fit in very well next to him. They have that kind of ideal complement of stars where it's you have a point guard, you have a wing, and you have a center. And to put two of these guys around Joel Embiid, guys that I'm not really worried about their chemistry fit as much as some of the guys they've had in the past, I expect Philly to be one of the best teams in the NBA and make a good push for being the best team in the NBA.
Jared, I think it's a fair point about Tobias Harris, because there are many times, and you've seen it up close because of the Sixers and Celtics playing in the postseason, where you kind of forget about Tobias Harris. Harris, he's a guy who can be out there for 40 minutes, and you wonder after the game, did he really play? A lot of times he just doesn't make that impact. But still, I got to push back a little bit on these three guys complimenting each other. They all are scorers, though. They all love to score. And generally with these big threes, somebody's going to have to dial it back. who is that guy who's going to dial it? I think that's a critical question for the Sixers.
Well, I think they're also all good playmakers. Like, those are three of the best playmakers at their position in the league. Well, maybe not quite Maxi. Maxi's still a good playmaker. He averaged 6 assists. I think he's more than willing to get off the ball. But, Maxi's only 23, I think, right now. He still needs to learn really how to be a playmaker. He's been a great scorer his whole life, and he's growing into that part of his game. But he's always given the indication that he's willing to do it. I don't think he's someone who wants to hunt for his shot, more so that he's just kind of, that's how he learned to play ball. But thankfully, he's growing up in the NBA playing next to Joel Embiid, so he doesn't have that kind of mistake in his head of like, this is my team. Like, I think there's a pretty clear dichotomy there. I think the bigger question is more spacing wise. Is Joel Embiid is a guy that plants in the post so much, so can they really make the spacing work? But I think the answer is probably yes, considering Paul George's versatility. But then when you're talking about who's willing to sacrifice, Paul George just spent 5 years not even coming close to winning a championship in LA. I think he's probably the one at this point of his career ready to make that sacrifice. And seeing the way that he was willing to jump ship from the Clippers, so he was like, the fact that he told the Clippers at the outset of free agency, I'm not coming back, and they put together like a 2-page statement on it, which I've never seen before.
It was unbelievable, wasn't it? It was incredible. It was great. It was really well written too.
It was also, I gotta say, very fair and balanced. Like, I read it, I was like, did a reporter write this? Like, this does not seem like it's coming from the team itself. So that was a crazy turn of events, but I think it was a pretty apparent move on his part of, I'm ready to be a part of something new, and I'm going to a team where I know I'm not the guy there. It's very apparent Joel Embiid is the guy there. So that's, like, I applaud him for his maturity to be willing to do that, for him to be willing to walk away from the Clippers after he said he was there to deliver them a championship and face all the memes, but it's kind of what he's been doing his whole career.
Joel Embiid as kind of the guy. Now, obviously, they've bolstered the team around him now, but is this it for Philly? I mean, it's like this is the big swing. If it's ever going to happen with Embiid, it's got to happen in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, Embiid is 29 going on 30. Like, they need to make this happen now. It's he's been getting hurt every single year. Actually, he's already 30 now. I think about it. He turned 30 in March, right? So, like, he has to, like, he has to hope that he can hold on to this health for a couple more years and actually finish off a playoff run. But you're looking at the same situation with Kristaps Porzingis here in Boston. It's like, these big guys, when they start getting hurt in the postseason, you start to really be worried about how much longer is this going to last before they can actually, like, not be able to finish the season off. And so they have to capitalize on this window. And frankly, credit to Daryl Morey running the Sixers that he keeps somehow pulling a rabbit out of a hat and reinventing his team with fresh stars every few years. And a process that should have fallen apart a few years ago, he keeps it going. But I think at a certain point, Embiid is going to be like, all right, if this team can't get it done, I'm going to have to go somewhere else. But they've managed to convince him for 9 years now to stick around, and this is a good way to do it for now.
You look at, Jared, you look at the Warriors. The Warriors, pretty much it's done. Chris Paul, they waived him, and Klay Thompson's going to go elsewhere. They're old. Draymond's 34. Steph is still Steph, but doesn't have a lot of help around him. And I was thinking about their run. Let's say it was in a 9-year run. I think they won their first, or 8 years. They won their first one in 2015, won their last one in 22. I'll still say they were kind of a threat in 23, even though they were a play-in team. That's a pretty good run to have for the Celtics. What's realistic? They won their first. You got Jalen and Jason, 26 and 27 years old. You got Porzingis at 28. You got Derek White at 29. And we already talked about the threats in the East with the Knicks and the Sixers. What do you think a legitimate run is for the Celtics? And I know all the factors financially. What's a good thing to expect, a reasonable run, a window to expect for the Celtics?
I think that you should look at this as they're halfway through their window. They're kind of at the KD going to the Warriors phase. Like, they were able to get Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis in after they made the finals before and they've been in the conference finals a bunch. I think I would look at this as like a 4-year window at this point, especially considering the financial situation. The whole second apron thing makes it really hard to keep these teams together for more than a few years. So the Celtics, in all likelihood, will get 2 to 3 more good years out of this group. And then at that point, they're probably going to have to start making some financial moves. I think they probably would keep Jalen and Jason together throughout all of that. I mean, they're a great star pairing, and they're just entering their prime now. So that's why I say kind of like a 3 to 5 year window, I think is what's realistic, because that's kind of the prime for those guys. And then after that, there's going to be some sort of drastic reshaping of the organization in all likelihood, especially because all those complementary players are going to kind of age out of their candidacy for championship relevance. So that's probably the window to expect. Brad Stevens last week talked about how he wants to build a team that's sustainable for an entire decade, and that's kind of the way that they look at things in Boston. But he also acknowledged there might be some down years in that. There might even be a year they don't make the playoffs, but he's trying to avoid big dips where they miss the postseason for multiple years. And credit to them, over the prior, I guess now it's been like 15, 16 years, they only had one season where they were terrible. And then otherwise they've been on the up. And so I think that's the way that they want to build, and that's realistic with Jalen and Jason. But for this specific team and what you would consider kind of part of this dynasty that they're trying to build, probably 3 to 5 years is realistic.
Jared, the Celtics took Baylor Shireman the other night in the first round. Late first round pick. You don't expect too much out of those guys usually. Is he going to be able to contribute to the team this year, and what do you expect from him?
I would expect that towards the end of the season is when he starts to get his legs under him, because Sam Hauser already fills that role. They're pretty similar players. They've got some differences, but they do a lot of things similarly. And so there's just not really opportunity for Shireman to really get reps out there and start to kind of get up to speed on NBA defense. I would imagine he's probably going to get some time in Maine, and then otherwise he's mostly playing in practice. So I don't see them needing him much this year. Hauser has been very healthy his entire career. The Celtics perimeter players actually generally have a pretty good health track record, so I don't think injury is going to open up opportunity for him so much. So I wouldn't expect them to see Shireman. I think the Shireman pick is looking more to like next year or the year after that, because Hauser's contract situation is he's now in the last year of his deal, and they'd like to get an extension done with him, but they have so many guys that they're paying. It's very possible that Hauser might find a better market for himself and head elsewhere.
Jared Weiss covers the NBA and, of course, the Celtics for The Athletic. Jared, we appreciate you taking a few minutes with us this morning. Thank you for the answers. I know you were, weren't going to be forthcoming at the beginning, but I thought it worked out well for all involved. So.
All right, enjoy all the Paul George talk.
All right, appreciate it. Jared Weiss joining us on the Volkswagen Dealers Expert Hotline. We've got numbers on the Jake Guentzel Tampa Bay deal. 7 times 9.
All right.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
How old is he?
29.
Okay.
Couple of 40-goal seasons under his belt. Not necessarily in the last, I think, 2 or 3 years. He hasn't been that same player, but he was one of the big fish on the market. Tampa Bay got him early. They went out and traded for his rights, got him signed before he hit free agency, so they gave him 7 years, $9 million per. The Sam Reinhart deal is 8 times 8.5. So as we talked to Ty Anderson a little bit earlier, he said, start seeing some of these numbers, like you realize there's a lot of teams with a lot of money to spend this year. The numbers are very inflated before the free agency officially opens at noon today.
And that's what you got to deal with. I mean, to keep somebody out of free agency, you're going to have to pay them. You're going to have to overpay them. So it's like the pre-overpay.
Right.
And then in free agency, now it's the deep one. Hey, you're going to be paying a pretty high rate. Do you want to do that now before the player goes to free agency? Because the price is going to go up as soon as that person is officially a UFA. But I was going to ask you a question, Ryan. You can answer it now, or you're the break master. You're the clock master. So maybe do it after you take a break. I wanted to ask Ty this, but I'll ask you. It's that ultimate guy question. It's the ultimate guy question. Every single guy has asked this question. What's he have that I don't have? Okay? When you see a guy walking with, you're like, oh my God, how did he get her? What does he have that I don't have? From the Bruins' perspective, what does Florida have that I don't have? What does Edmonton have that I don't have? Now you had a Game 7, great series. Looked like it was going to be a runaway for Florida. Then all of a sudden, here comes Edmonton forcing a Game 7, and it was a great series. But now you see what it takes to get to that championship level. Are you even close? Are you even close? Like, we're talking about free agency. Are the Bruins even close to that level?
Interesting question. We'll tackle that when we come back, since I am the break master.
You're the break master.
617-779-0985. Ryan Johnston, Michael Holley in for Toucher and Hardy. Money being thrown all over the place.
Gotta love it.
A lot of people getting very rich today.
So you're going to answer my question? What's he have that I don't have? And back when I was single, the answer was everything. Everything. Do you really want me to answer this question? I wasn't bold enough to ask that question as a single guy.
All right, so the question was in relation to the Bruins and teams like the Florida Panthers,
champions,
the Edmonton Oilers,
champs,
right? The teams that played for the Stanley Cup this year, and you didn't. What do those teams have that you don't? The weird thing, Michael, is that those are two teams that are the best teams in their conferences in two very different ways, right? So the Florida Panthers, we got a chance to see that firsthand here in Boston during the playoffs. They are just absolutely relentless in everything they do, right? That they can defend. They got quality goaltending that I didn't know that they had. Honestly, I had not much faith in Bobrovsky, but he had a hell of a run right up until that 3-game hiccup in the Stanley Cup final, and then he showed up again in Game 7. Right. But their team they don't let you breathe, right? You get it, and they play that way during the regular season too, but in the postseason, it was just stifling. What they did to the Bruins for most of that series, what they did to the Edmonton Oilers for
those first three games,
it's like,
down.
How are they doing this? Because on the flip side, what Edmonton does better than pretty much anybody in the league is score. Because you got one of the greatest players in the history of the game. You've got him surrounded by some really high-end talent, at least for now. And so what do they have that the Bruins don't have? Well, both teams, I would say, have more in the way of what you would consider high-end talent.
Okay.
Right? Which is difficult to manufacture. That's difficult to find. And if you do find it, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg, as we're seeing today. I think they just need a little they need more physicality to really compete with a team like Florida in the playoffs. They need more puck possession, which is why a guy like Elias Lindholm becomes important today, because he can help you in that regard, help you in faceoffs, help you defensively from the forward position. I think that's really important. I think they need more mean in their game, and that's why
I like that.
Zadorov is an interesting name because he's got size and he's got meanness. As Ty Anderson said, sometimes his hockey sense is not always where it should be.
Sometimes his hockey sense eludes him. That's what he said.
But
well said.
You know, so. Listen, you don't need to worry about competing with the Edmonton Oilers right now.
Well,
but there's an arms race going on in the East with teams like Florida, with teams like the Rangers, even Tampa Bay, who's, $9 million a year for Guentzel. I feel like they're going to regret the back end of that contract, but, might they be able to win a cup before then? That's what they're betting on. And so, are you willing to take that level of a swing? Do you have the resources to take that level of a swing, or do you want to kind of stick with a more balanced approach? You're about to spend a lot of money on your goaltender, have him locked up for the long term. Is that still going to be the identity of your team? Is more defense and goaltending than it is about trying to outscore the opponent?
See, I agree with you. I love your description, your breakdown of it, because, all right, with Edmonton, yeah, it's the more fun hockey to watch, but I don't think it's sustainable.
It's not Western Conference hockey.
It's not. It's nothing to shoot for, because let's just start with this. They got the best player in the world.
Right.
They've got the best player.
If you wind up with Connor McDavid, then we can talk about that.
So
but until then,
it's so unusual. Forget about even trying to build your team that way. You're not going to find Connor McDavid. That's not happening. You don't have it on the roster. He's not available in free agency. Forget about it. And so it was almost a style of play that we were going to mock after the first 3 games, because they did not even compete with Florida. I mean, Florida, it was non-competitive.
Well, just look at the way that series played out, right? I mean, when you had low-scoring games, Florida won, and they looked dominant doing it. And then that middle portion of the series, Edmonton starts scoring 5, 6, 8 goals a game, and it's like It's a totally different style.
It's swung the other way. And then that final game, 1-goal game, 2-1. And Edmonton is lamenting all the possibilities, all the chances that they had, and they did. But okay, ultimately Florida wins it. But your description of Florida, I think that's 100% accurate, and that's why I come back to the Bruins and say, okay, if that's what it takes, maybe we're having the wrong conversation. I'm assuming they're going to sign Jeremy Swayman. It'd be stupid not to. Right. Jeremy Swayman's going to be signed. Let's say you get Lindholm. All right. If you're Don Sweeney, now you've done everything that you can possibly do roster-wise to have your guys ready. Now the conversation should be, is it in these players now to have that relentlessness?
Right.
That's the question. Because the Bruins way, and I'll say it because I want you to have the job. I want you to get the job. You're going to be. I'm going to say this. Ryan Johnston is not saying this. This is Michael Holley saying it. The Bruins' way of doing business is when they fall short in the postseason, they don't generally, a player usually doesn't have to pay the price for it. It's generally the coach. Oh, wait a minute. Hey, we didn't get it done. Claude Julien's got to go. Oh, we didn't get it done. Butch Cassidy has got to go. We didn't get it done. There was a thought last year. If they lose in the first round in Toronto, if they lose this series, okay, Jim Montgomery's going to go. We need to focus on who's in that room. Who's able to elevate their game? Who is able to bring about that relentlessness that you talk about, that toughness? It really is toughness. It's toughness when it matters most. And I'm not saying the players aren't tough. They are. But can you summon it and can you pass it on when it matters most, when you got to have
There's such a difference between regular season hockey and postseason hockey. I mean, you don't have to watch a lot of playoff hockey to realize that, right? To say it's like a different sport. It's like, you hit game one of the playoffs and a switch gets flipped and everybody hits, right? Everybody is just pouring their heart into every shift. And listen, regular season hockey is entertaining. I love the sport. I do. But playoff hockey is just such a different beast that what works in the regular season, what gets you division titles during the regular season, it's part of the reason that the President's Trophy winner often doesn't survive the first round or two of the playoffs, because it's a different animal. And you have to have such a level of buy-in from everybody in the room on every shift of every game in order to win the cup. It doesn't work any other way. And so, people, and at times, rightfully so, have been down on Jake DeBrusk over the years, right? Jake DeBrusk was pretty good in the playoffs this year, right? But he's not a guy that you necessarily look at and say he's got that mindset where every time the game is on the line, he wants the puck on his stick, right?
But he's a perfect example, though. Jake DeBrusk, I'm going to be down on Jake DeBrusk. Okay? Sure. If you look at the numbers, if you look at it on paper, 5 goals in the postseason, that's pretty good. But look at the 5 goals. It's almost like some games, Jake DeBrusk, where are you?
Right. And that's always been the issue.
Where are you? And then he shows up with a couple of goals and then a couple of assists. There's the Jake DeBrusk we're looking for. I would much rather have a guy who is active and is present every game, and sometimes it's no goals and 2 assists. Sometimes it's a goal and an assist, but he's always active and around it, and you feel the presence even though it doesn't show up on the score sheet, whereas he shows up on the score sheet, but then you look back and go, wait a minute, but I don't remember him being that invested. Right. I don't remember him being that active in the game.
But look at the type of players, going back to your original question, the type of players that the Florida Panthers have brought in here in the last few years. Matthew Tkachuk, right? They just paid Sam Reinhart a boatload of money, which, again, I think is probably an overpay, but they were desperate to keep him there. 57 goals. I don't think he ever approaches that number again, but he is a heart and soul kind of guy, right? He isn't just about the goal scoring, right? He's a really talented player, but he's also a heart and soul piece on that team. those are the types of players that you should be willing to overpay for, right? Because that guy is not only going to give you some decent numbers during the regular season, but he's going to be able to put the team on his back when the chips are down. And so, that's part of the ultimate answer is, what do the Bruins need to add? Well, and this is why it's not easy. Like, is Elias Lindholm that guy in the postseason? I don't know.
Ooh.
You're going to spend a lot of money on him.
The answer is I don't know, and you're going to spend, and it's going to cost you $8 million.
But see, that's the thing. This is why those guys aren't on the market, though. Like, this is why, Reinhart doesn't get to free agency. This is why, Guentzel, again, Tampa threw a draft pick just to get his rights, to get a chance to talk to him before today and get him locked up because they feel like he can be that kind of a guy for them. Otherwise, you're not paying him $9 million a year.
Yeah, but you're the Bruins. You're gonna pay, because I think Swayman showed me something. So if you pay Swayman $8 million, I don't care. Pay him $7.5, $8.5. I don't care. Good. Yep. He stepped up in the postseason. I don't look at the Bruins and say they didn't win because Jeremy Swayman didn't do the job.
If anything, he gave them the best chance to win.
So I feel pretty good about it. I don't know that he's that guy, but I feel pretty good about it. But if I'm paying $8 million for Lindholm or anybody else, and my answer to the question is I don't know, man.
Well, I say I don't know just because I just haven't seen him play that. To be honest, he spent his career out west. We just don't get to see him that much. I know that the Bruins really like him, right? I mean, they've
liked him for a while.
They've made multiple efforts to try to bring the guy in,
including this year. Was it supposed to be some three-team? Was it a three-team trade? Landing him in Boston.
The issue is okay, so he's playing out in Calgary, he's playing out in Vancouver. After the deal this year, it's okay. I just is he Patrice Bergeron light, as some people say? Okay, well, I like that comparison, even if it's, light. I mean, certainly we know what kind of a player that is to even draw a comparison like that. But he's got one season of more than 29 goals on his resume, right? He had a 42-goal season a few years ago. He's got, one 80-point season, but he's more like a 50 or 60-point guy. So is he the transformational top two center that you need? Maybe, maybe not. But he's about as good as you're going to get in free agency right now when you need help at that position.
Yeah, you either spend that money on a guy like that, or you look at your own roster and say, hey, are these guys going to develop? Do they have another level to get to? And I think the answer is no on that latter point.
Right.
Now, there's nobody in-house on the Bruins who's going to suddenly rise and give you that thing that you lack. And you lack it. You've lacked it for a while. I mean, it's been 6 years since you played in the Stanley Cup final. It's been 14 years in June since we had a Bruins parade. 14 years. So it's just not an aberration. Oh, they're so close. No. It's been a long time since you hoisted a cup. So you've got to take a hard look at yourself and say, what are we missing? And the times that, and you think about it, the times that they've come close. So, you win it in 11, and you think you had a pretty good shot in 13. But what happened? A tougher team took it from you. The Blackhawks were tougher when it mattered most. They took it from you in 13. The Blues took it from you in 18. You got a game 7 at home, and you're making mistakes, and they are just putting themselves in position to just make you look like you weren't ready for the moment. So it all the Bruins playoff losses, it wasn't one of those cliche, I'm just going to tip my cap. No. You lost in the playoffs because somebody just out-toughed you.
Right.
It's nothing official yet, but it looks like Jonathan Marchessault is heading to New Jersey.
Interesting. I was just looking at Elliot Friedman from Sportsnet up in Canada, who, if you're a non-hockey person, he's kind of like the Adam Schefter of the NHL. He took a swing at predictions as to where everyone's going to land this morning. He's got Lindholm and Zadorov coming to Boston. He's got Jake DeBrusk going to Seattle, which is interesting. Haven't heard anything on DeBrusk this morning, but I would imagine that he'll have some offers out there.
Sure.
And some pretty good ones at that, I think.
Yeah. Bertuzzi's getting what he got. He should get more.
Bertuzzi got 4 times 5.5 in Chicago today, apparently. All right, Mike Lockhart's going to get us updated on the Sports Hub headlines. Ryan Johnston, Michael Holley, as we take you up till 10 o'clock in for Toucher and Hardy.
Sports Hub headlines.
Lots of free agency news. Let's start with the NBA. The Celtics and Luke Cornett agreed on a 1-year deal. Cornett averaged 15 minutes a game in 63 games for the C's last year. Chris Paul signed a 1-year deal with San Antonio. Kevin Love heads back to Miami on a 2-year deal. Paul George signed a 4-year deal for $212 million to go to the 76ers. Tyrese Maxey also signed with Philly for 5 years. And Kelly Oubre back with the 76ers for 2 years, $16 million. The Red Sox stopped a 2-game skid, winning 4-1 over the San Diego Padres. Devers and Duran both had homers for the Sox. Boston heads to Miami for a 3-game series starting tomorrow night. And NHL free agency officially kicks off at noon. Tyler Bertuzzi is reportedly heading to Chicago. Jake Guentzel has signed with the Lightning for 7 years, and the Florida Panthers have re-signed Sam Reinhart to an 8-year deal. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by Valvoline. Get quick and convenient vehicle maintenance this month. Visit newenglandoilchange.com for 15% off your drive-through oil change service at Valvoline Instant Oil Change, now open in Weymouth, Canton, Bedford, and Natick. I'm Mike Lockhart on Boston's Home for Sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Toucher and Hardy, 98.5 The Sports Hub.
poodle. It's an effing poodle, dumbass.
The Sports Hub. We know what you're thinking. What could I possibly have missed from the show?
6-2 stack mark. 6-2 stack mark. Ready.
It's time for The Stack on Toucher and Hardy.
Ryan Johnston, Michael Holley in for Toucher and Hardy today. We have been very free agent-centric today, as you might expect on July 1. Bruins and the rest of the NHL hit free agency at noon today. NBA started last night. We've been talking about Paul George going to Philly. Klay Thompson's in the mix in Philly, too. He's going to at least talk to the Sixers as part of his whirl around the league. He's got about 4 or 5 teams, it sounds like, on his list that he's going to be talking to. But Sixers trying to make a run at you. But, Michael, last week was the NBA draft. Most of the people drafted, I think even some hardcore fans would be difficult to tell who these people were. You got guys from France all over the place. It's it really is amazing what the spectacle of the NBA draft has become. It used to be like guys we all know, right? Guys at the top of the list. And even on down years, like you knew these guys because you had seen them play in the NCAA tournament and things like that. Now it's like we're just taking people from all over the world.
Question is,
maybe you've seen them on YouTube once.
Right, I was going to say the question is, out of the guys in the top 10, 1, how many did you recognize, and 2, how many have you seen play?
Right
in the top 10. So top 2 picks. I'm sorry, This is how bad it is. So the number 1 pick in the draft, does anybody know who it is?
Nope.
Right. Okay. Reece Hachet, from France. So I'm like, okay, interesting kid. He averaged like 10 points a game in his league. He's young, 18, 19 years old. I actually watched his father play and didn't realize it. Yeah. I watched his father play. It was So I was working at the Globe at the time, covered the Olympics. It was one of my least favorite, to be honest with you, it was one of my least favorite U.S. Olympic basketball teams.
What year was this?
2000.
2000, okay.
2000. So when I tell you some of the names on the list, you'll say, really? So they did. KG was on the team.
Mm-hmm.
KG was talking trash to French players. Surprise, surprise. Saying stuff like KG, you're going to be thrown. This is in Australia. You're going to be thrown out of the country saying this. They don't. I know what you're saying. But I don't think they understand the level of depravity that this sounds like. There's some of the things that you're threatening to do. You'll be thrown out of the country. But KG was on the team. Allen Houston was on the team. Vin Baker. So that was the team that almost lost to Lithuania.
Okay. I'm looking at the list of players who didn't go that year, and it's a phenomenal list of players.
Oh, just
Kobe, Duncan, Iverson, Karl Malone, Shaq, everybody passed.
I think that was the year, and I may not have covered that particular game. That was when Vince Carter dunked over that. There's a very famous dunk where he dunked over the guy, literally jumped over him and got it. But they played France in the gold medal game, and Reece Hachet's dad, Stefan, was on that team. So, yeah, it is one of those. We're in one of those cycles in pro basketball where you got to up your international game if you really want to enjoy the draft experience.
Well, one of the biggest stories that comes out of the NBA draft is a guy who's taken at the end of the second round, Bronny James, and I just wanted to share this because I thought this was I actually giggled because we don't think of L.A. as a sports market the way we think of Boston,
right?
Where people are just miserable all the time or constantly picking apart the team, and we kind of tend to think of L.A. as a place where people don't really care all that much. You live in a place where it's like sunny and 80 every day.
Nice.
It's like it's
fine.
Yeah, it's
right.
Occasionally I'll stop by a Dodger game for a few innings, or we'll go to the Laker game, but we'll spend half the game like looking for celebrities or whatever. The LA Times has published some letters to the sports editor. That's such an old school idea. Just people sitting down and writing letters to the editor.
Right.
But the LA Times this weekend published a bunch of feedback that they got from their readers. I just wanted to share a few of these. I feel sorry for Bronny James. His dad did him no favors. What if other players think he gets more playing time than he deserves because he's LeBron's son or takes one of their jobs? Gee, you think? Here's another one. Shame on Jeannie Buss. Shame on Rob Pelinka, and shame on the Lakers organization for selling their soul to Team James.
That happened a long time ago, buddy. But anyway, keep going.
Not only did the Lakers waste a second-round pick on Bronny, but more important, these actions will potentially cost a deserving youngster a valuable spot in a limited player pool of the NBA.
God, I hate that argument. Yeah.
Right, those second-round picks, everybody, it's okay. Lakers use a valuable pick on Bronny James.
Valuable pick.
What was he, 55 overall in the NBA draft? Where there might not even have been 3 quality players in the NBA draft, but 55, man, is a valuable pick.
Valuable.
Goes through on a very bad USC team last year. He didn't start, averaged less than 5 points a game. They could have signed him as a free agent. No other team would have drafted him. I'm 75 years old. Draft me. It'd be the same difference to the
good.
Lakers' championship chances.
That's good. Yeah, so your mic's not on again. Look at it.
No other team was allowed to draft him.
Right. Yes, his agent was telling everybody, don't draft him. He's going to go play in Australia before he
don't
plays
draft him. And they said, thanks. We weren't going to. But,
exactly.
But thank you.
George from Encino. Dear Lakers, you have officially become embarrassing. I'm not sure why J.J. Redick thought it was necessary to drop 2 F-bombs during his introductory news conference.
Oh, that too. Didn't like that one, huh?
I sure hope he didn't do that giving his 4th grade team their pregame pep talk.
He probably did. You ever try to coach 4th graders?
David from Costa Mesa. I'm 79, a retired school teacher, and I can cuss with the best of them, but J.J. Redick's F-bombs on national TV offended me and many others. No. Sorry, J.J., you just lost a fan.
You lost a fan because J.J. Redick cussed on TV?
I did think of it. And listen, I am not offended at all by language.
It was surprising, right?
It's an odd choice.
Yeah.
To, at your introductory press conference when you are, you've been brought in with 0 coaching experience to take an NBA job, to go out there and start dropping F-bombs in your press conference. It was an odd choice to me.
He is, as you've heard, on 98.5, the Sports Hub, the great interview we did with Felger and Maz. He doesn't lack confidence.
Apparently not.
He's a very arrogant guy. And look, there are a lot of NBA coaches who are arrogant. They've just got a better track record than he does. Like Greg Popovich is arrogant, but he's actually won something.
Right. You have to earn the right to be arrogant.
He hadn't done anything. Right. It's not the F-bombs. It's like, JJ, what have you done? But he was like that. He was like that when he was doing his podcast, and he goes at the old school players, saying, "Oh, they didn't play against anybody." Once again, JJ, what have you done? What have you won?
Just quickly before we wrap up, just popped up on my Twitter timeline.
Jeremy Swayman?
Penguins interested in signing Matt Grzelcyk. So, local boy, not a surprise, but appears to be headed out of town.
Minutes before Jeremy Swayman.
It'll happen.
that deal's announced.
Holley is back tomorrow with Matt McCarthy. I am back here with Beetle on Wednesday morning. Mike Lockhart is
back tomorrow.
Back tomorrow as well. Have a great rest of your day. Midday show is next.